And we're back to steal your intro. Everybody, welcome back to the Radio FWD podcast. I'm delighted to bring you Toronto podcasters, genre film legends, exploitation film legends, horror, noir, the B-est of B movies, the Sleazoids podcast. Thank you guys so much for coming on, Jamie and Josh.
Wow, thank you so much. It's so rare to get hyped up in the reverse. I'm so used to being the guy who has a guest on. I'm like, this is a best-selling author here to talk about noir films today.
Yeah, here's a couple jackasses here to talk about some movies.
Well, I hope to capture this like natural essence that you guys have kept up for the last 7 years now, since 2018.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. We are past episode 400, over 1,000 films covered in your podcast. I mean, how surreal is that?
He came with stats too.
Yeah, it's like we don't even know that. Yeah.
Well, how surreal is it to be confronted with those stats? We'll start with you, Josh.
It feels weird, man. It does feel weird. It feels like Jamie and I were pushing carts in a grocery store and we just like talking to each other, and we somehow are like, well, let's talk to each other every single week. And I got to be honest, I feel confronted with it the same way you sometimes hear like athletes confronted by it, where they hear their whole career. They're like, oh, I hit this many goals or whatever. And they're just like, yeah, I don't know. You just kind of do it like one game at a time, man. And I feel like that about our shows. I was like, every week my brain is like, what are we talking about this week? Who's coming on this week? Sometimes we're flying by the seat of our pants. And now it's like, yeah, shit, 7 years of our lives, man. It's wild.
Yeah, it does feel strange. And it's, I don't know, you kind of, like you said, you kind of get to, I don't know, there's like a fog as it goes. You just get used to it a little bit. But then every once in a while, something will happen and it'll kind of shoot you back into like, I don't know, reality, where you're kind of something like, for instance, we were at TIFF, and it was only like the second year this year that we got to do it, at least as the Sleazoids podcast. And we met the producer of Face Off randomly and had like a 20-minute conversation with him. It was very cool. I mean, that's like my favorite movie of all time.
I know, it's the only one in your top 4.
I literally
right?
pulled James Letterboxd up in front of the man and was like, just so you know, this is literally the only movie on his top 4 page, and he's had it this way since he started this account.
Wow.
Yeah, true. never stopped.
Some secret insider info about the remake that they're making, and he was telling us all kinds of stuff which we aren't allowed to say.
Yeah, and it was just like those moments, I guess, make me. I mean, I'm always grateful, but those are like very surreal moments where, you know, you recognize that we started just getting in trouble talking about movies at a grocery store, and now we're having a 20-minute casual conversation outside of a cinema with the producer of Face Off. And I mean, like a week or two ago, we had Megan Abbott on, who's a New York bestseller, and it's just, I don't know, it feels surreal. It's strange, and yeah, I still to this day feel kind of like underprepared in a sense of just being like I'm a singer, really, and I just had a passion for film. So Josh was very kind to be like, I think we could talk movies for hours on end, even though I don't know anything about theory or anything like that. So it was I mean, I don't know, it feels surreal.
If we want to go there, the reason I knew Jamie was the partner was because I could so naturally talk to him for so many hours at a time. And I've had people come up to me and ask, you know, like, what's the secret sauce of a podcast? Like, what's this? And I was like, it's not the movies. And it's not, you know, I think that we try to put some effort into researching and caring about our opinions and going in depth. And, you know, there's lots of things you can work on to do that. But when people ask me the number one thing, I was like, you have to like talking to the person that you're talking to for that many hours. And you have to enjoy that process. And so that was what Jamie, not having a background in film but just having a curiosity and just being someone who was like, if he didn't know something, he'd ask a question, and then I'd be like, no, I don't know that, we should look that up. And then, you know, like that is the more important thing for a podcast than, you know, being an expert, I think.
Well, when I first talked to you guys at your review cinema showing of Twisted Issues.
Speaking of surreal moments too, that was the first time ever standing in front of an audience, like at a theater, being like, we are presenting something to you you've never seen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
During that conversation, I remember, Jamie, you mentioned something like feeling at the beginning of your podcast, feeling like you weren't a film critic. I wonder, I'm sure you've earned that accolade at this point after at least 1,000 hours of speaking about film on audio and camera.
Yeah, I feel I'm much more confident every week now. I would say those first few years even, I felt like an imposter, like a complete and total imposter. And it would make me probably second guess myself here and there. But I don't know. It's just, I guess the more you do it, the more you get used to it. And then I also think I don't know, I think I found a little bit of confidence in being a voice that was outside, you know, someone that went to school for film, or someone that's even been taking it incredibly seriously for longer than me. I feel like it's nice to have two different voices on the show, and so I kind of found a confidence just sitting in that, rather than always being like, you know, when you have a director on and then you have a writer as your podcast partner, you're just, sometimes you feel like intimidated and kind of like the little kid just kind of like, you know, trailing along and just being like, yeah, I liked that part. That was really cool when he did
There's
that.
guests that we sometimes have on where even I sit back and I'm just enjoying listening to like an episode of the show. I feel like that every time we have Adam Naiman on or something like that. I'm just like, you know, I feel like he could read his book to us and we'd both sit there and be like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
He was my very first guest, which is an insane hill to try and climb.
You're making your way through the Toronto film scene.
I am, yeah. I've talked to Will Sloan, now I'm talking to you guys.
Brandon, our buddy Brandon Lim,
that's
who
right.
designed our shirts for us, which was another
so talented
moment. Every once in a while, I now see someone in the Toronto area. Like, I don't know who that person is. They have my shirt on. I was like, I don't even know if they recognize me. That's awesome. Let's go.
I am going through the gauntlet, but every time I have that exact same feeling you were mentioning, Jamie, because I'm not classically trained in film criticism. I'm someone who got into film actually speaking of music, which we'll get into later. I'd love to chat with you about your music background, but that was my start in terms of writing and thinking about art, was in album reviews and music. I was big into Rate Your Music, and I was in the age of Anthony Fantano and 4chan Mew Essentials charts, which is I had my first music interview, which is a huge throwback.
The Rate Your Music to Letterboxd pipeline is real.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
That is my pipeline, but in the same way of being obsessive about cataloging the media that you're consuming, right? The scrobbles. Which are the albums that you've listened to on a weekly basis, and then putting a chart up and getting people to argue about the albums that you're listening to and why they're trash. That kind of same pipeline put me onto something like Letterboxd and talking about film and that sort of thing. But I do feel in the same way as an outsider, and now I've just wasted so many years of my life watching movies that I maybe that feeling is easing off a little bit. But yeah, okay. How did this start? Like, specifically, you guys were literally working at a grocery store together?
Literally working at a grocery store. Yeah, we've told this story a couple times, but like basically, I moved to London, Ontario. I had finished film school at Toronto Film School, and I could not afford to live in Toronto anymore. I realized also while in film school that, you know, as much as I liked working on movies, like I was kind of working towards being like an editor. I did some assistant editing work on some feature films and stuff like that. But I realized in film school that I kind of gravitated towards the film history and those kinds of classes and reading about film and writing about film. And so when I moved to London, I kind of was like, shit, I have given up becoming someone who's in the production side of film. And now I live in a place I don't know, I'm not that familiar with. I started working at a grocery store. Jamie worked at the same grocery store. We pushed carts together, but he was not, when I started there, he wasn't even like he was on tour with his band for like 2 weeks. I think he had like booked his vacation time like the weeks that I was getting trained.
Yeah.
And so I only heard about Jamie. Everyone was like, he's like the coolest guy. He's like he's on tour with a band, you know, he's in like punk shows. And I was like, okay. So he kind of got hyped up for me. We ended up being sort of like the clerks, and we had such a weird I think about it now, we had such a weird grocery store setup where like the carts, it wasn't like a joint room where all the carts went back, so it was kind of like you had enough room for like 10 or 15 carts, and then you literally had to move them outside and around into another, like where people actually grabbed them from the customers. So basically we had to like sit at the end of a hall, wait for like 15 carts to come, and then move them, just around one corner, and then
Mm-hmm.
that was it. So we were standing there probably 5, 6, 8-hour shifts, and we would just be like, you had to make the time pass. And so we would sit there and we would be like, what did you watch? This is what I watched. And that was, and it took us a little while before we were like, man, what if we watched the same things and like recorded this conversation?
I wonder how many episodes of the podcast were lost to waiting around for
a lot.
It would have been incredible too if we found a way to like just do, mics that connected to us or whatever, and then it was just the on the job podcast about the film, and in the background we'd have our managers yelling at us to get back to work.
Someone should steal that. Just
you
like
guys need to get
two grocery store clerks sitting around,
That's actually a great idea. I feel like nowadays that would pop off on social media,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That would make some
But that
good
is
Instagram reels and TikTok.
yeah.
Customers being
But-
like, what are they talking about?
That's the thing. I mean, I would argue that we did the job every single day incredibly well and fast, just so that we could get together again in the corner and start talking about movies and do anything other than work.
We worked hard, but then
So-
we would still get yelled at because they would be like, these guys have been talking their entire shift.
They would basically be like, you guys have to look like you're busy. Sorry.
That was
Like-
literally it. They were like, we know you're doing your job well. We know that you're on top of things and you're doing it fast and well in order to have free time to talk to each other. But you just look like you have free time and talk to each other. You look like you're recording a podcast in the corner of the grocery
But
store.
that is like that is the underlying psychosis of having a manager or a job that needs you to look busy, right? Like wasted time and labor, right? Anyways, not to get too political, but or angry at all those instances I've had working menial labor jobs and having the exact same experience. Jamie, I wanted to ask how. I mean, you kept up your music career. Obviously, you're in two bands. You're in Along Came a Spider, and you're in sorry, what is
Love Muscle?
Love Muscle, right?
Hell yeah!
Love Muscle, Along Came a
Love that.
Spider. Are those? Is there a lineage to the bands that you're in now and that time at the grocery store, or is?
Well, Along Came a Spider, I've been in for like
that's who you were on
10
tour.
years. Yeah, that's who I was on tour with when
yes.
when Josh and I met, and that's a band. They're from Cleveland, Ohio, actually. I met them online, and we went on like kind of a rough week tour to see if it would work, and it did. And so I've been with them ever since. So that's been a long thing. And then Love Muscle is a cover band I joined about a year ago because I moved back to Chatham. When Josh moved to Toronto, I moved back to Chatham, and so I just joined that for.
London is Josh and Jamie-less, unfortunately.
Yes, it is. It is. I haven't been there in a little bit, honestly.
We're gonna go back at some point to our stomping grounds, the Highland Cinema, which we want to shout out.
We should record one in at the Highland.
Exactly, fantastic movie palace. When I left the grocery store briefly and still lived in London, I moved jobs over to there, and I started just scooping popcorn there. But it was like a 4 or 5 employee run movie theater. So by the end of it, I was doing accounting, I was doing programming, I was cleaning the fucking bathrooms. You were in the whole theater, essentially. And it was amazing. And so the guy who took over my position and does programming there now, Mike, he's an awesome guy. We hung out at TIFF, and he was like, we need to get the Sleazoids boys back at the Highland at some point. So we're going to go back and we're going to do another screening there now that we've gotten one under our belts. Feel pretty confident about it.
We'll loop back around to that. I'm going to ask you about your favorite screen in theater experiences. That's absolutely something I want to hear about. But excellent. So it's interesting because especially Along Came a Spider, it exists in this subgenre of hardcore and post-hardcore punk and metal. I guess some people uninformed might call it screamo, but there are so many genre labels that you could attach to this. To the sort of music that you're playing around with Along Came a Spider.
A lot of people call it, I guess, metalcore is how I think a lot of it, because that seems to encompass a bunch of different things. People assume pop and punk and rock and metal all kind of put together. So, yeah, it's usually what we say, I guess.
But it's interesting that music genres and film genres are as dogmatic to each other. There's elitism in both instances. There's but I find it funny that
Jamie, you're not really a giallo.
yeah. You're not
real
really
emo only consists of. Do you know this copy pasta?
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
exactly. No, but I find it interesting that you guys are covering genre in your podcast. I wonder if there's a level of dogmatism that you found covering genre over the years, where people argue, well, that's not a real noir, that's not really metalcore.
We get
Maybe
hit with it
Sure.
sometimes, but we were pretty upfront when we started the show that we were using genre in the broadest possible terms,
Yeah.
so that to give our guests freedom, to give us kind of freedom.
Mhm.
But like, we don't do it that often, but like, we consider musicals and comedies, and you know, like it's one of those things where we say genre, everyone kind of implicitly knows that we mean sort of genre and exploitation, and we mean horror and action and science fiction, and I do think that our catalog bears true to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
every once in a while we'll do Lawrence of Arabia, and it just
exactly.
because
No one has gotten that mad about it. Like when we're like, yeah, we're doing a historical drama this week, no one has been like, well, that's not really an
Right.
exploitation film, guys, and I come to you guys only for that. No one has gotten that mad. Every once in a while I actually find it's the hyper specific in the reverse if we're too broad. And
Sure.
and like I you know, every once in a while I see the reviews out there that we get on our show, and there was one person who was really, really mad
Mhm.
that we even slightly hinted that Texas Chainsaw Massacre was the beginning of what would become a slasher cycle, or slashers would be inspired by it. They were like, that is not a fucking slasher, you know?
Yeah, it's stuff like that.
I was so taken with it at the moment. I was like, I don't remember doing that in the show, and I played it back, and I was like, I guess technically we used the word slasher at one point, but we followed it up with, but it doesn't follow. It doesn't feel like that. It's before that was a thing, and it's more elemental. And I was just like, okay, well, you know. So every once in a while we get hit with hyper specific genres or mislabeling of genres, and that was also making the joke about giallos too.
Yeah, but I have the same association now with these musical genres that I was chatting about before I got into film. And when I see these genre specific films now, I think metal and horror kind of go hand in hand. But I also think of, you know, you guys covered maybe on a bonus transmission, but Mad God, this the typical like horror fucked up vision of hell in claymation. I always associate that mentally with like black metal, like the extremes and fringes visually of that film kind of remind me of the fringes of metal music. And in the same way, like Le True, which is another Sleazoids classic episode, Le True, I kind of
don't get Jamie started on process and procedural.
Yeah, I love.
He'll get going. He's like, "What do you mean that movie is like an hour of guys silently breaking out of a prison,
making a giant
masterpiece, instantly masterpiece." Yeah,
but
it's like
for me, that's in the same vein as industrial metal.
Okay,
Literally, the procedural of factories and the sounds of metal and clinking. I kind of have that same association. So, yeah. Sorry, Jamie, I cut you off there.
Oh no, not at all. It's so it is like I definitely have experienced that in musical genre. You'll have like you know, you hear stuff like that's not hardcore, that's not deathcore, that's not. It's like whatever. When you start to get to these subgenres, people are like they get so specific, and there is a little bit of elitism, and I think that can happen with movies. I think a little less because I think most movies have at least two that you can kind of really lock into. But every once in a while you get that kind of argument. Like for instance, like we avoid straight dramas pretty much on the show entirely. Right. It's like usually the rule is like, oh, someone brings out a gun, it belongs on the show. We're good to go, right. That kind of thing. But you know, there's the term like elevated horror, for instance, that's been used in the last I don't know how long, but it feels like a more recent thing. And we've definitely probably been.
I was gonna say it feels like 10 years at this point, man.
Yeah. And we try to have like that term seems strange because it seems a little bit like it's undermining horror in general, as if horror can't be deep or you know.
Yeah.
And so there's some like weird elitism sometimes where people even have to subgenre like horror movies so that they can feel better about liking horror movies. And I'm just like, just be a freak, just enjoy it. I don't know why you wouldn't want to, you know.
I'm so glad you said that, Jamie, because there is a quote from episode 1 of the podcast.
Oh my god.
Hell yeah.
Quoting Jamie, I feel like that's going to be the majority of these movies, referencing Josh's comment that the plot is simple, that the plot of The Hills Have Eyes is simple and straightforward, and that there might not be that much to talk about. How funny and wrong you guys were, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's all we fucking do.
That's all you guys do. It's now 400 episodes in, and despite the sleaziest of sleaze in these films, you guys managed to find at least an hour of content, of criticism, cultural anxiety, social paranoia, anxieties about the body and flesh and blood and everything that might be, like you were saying, Jamie, in the fringes of our psyche, in the fringes of art or whatever. But you guys, that's what you've been talking about for 400 episodes. I think you have stripped away a level of elitism for your audience, and I think that is part of the most attractive reasons.
That was one of the most important things when we started the show.
Yeah.
Is that we very much felt that there are, I mean, some of our favorite stuff we've ever covered, ever talked about, ever discovered on the show is the stuff that doesn't get the kind of love and attention, is made under the most limited, most meager resources that you can find. And part of, sort of our founding ethos, I guess, if we have one, was that we really felt that money sort of corrupts expression. And some of our favorite movies that we've talked about in terms of, I'm saying this because I just rewatched Gremlins 2 on a print at the review recently too. I was like, there's someone taking a blank check and just lighting it on fire. So we love when an auteur takes resources like that and gets to have fun with them. But on the flip side of it, there is so much art made for $2,000 in someone's grandma's basement that we went, this guy it's pure expression. It is exactly what this person wanted to put on screen. And yeah, sometimes you go, it's crude. It maybe doesn't work in the way a conventional movie works, but we were very open to being like, this is art. And this could be just as valuable and just as deep as anyone, who is thinking more intellectually and more expensively about movie making. And so that was something that we went, we incorporated into our intro too, that we're going through we're going dumpster diving. We're looking for the people who made the best art under those conditions. And sometimes it's our favorite stuff that we talk about.
Yeah. And I think too, like when you don't have that budget, or at least the producers or the kind of studio behind you, you just automatically see, human nature in its rawest form, and there's unfiltered art, so you just see things that you'd never be able to see anywhere else because no one is blocking it. Sometimes we have seen things that are going to really upset people, especially if they're not used to these movies, but I don't know, there's something about, even if I don't agree with it and I find something to be offensive, there's always something in me that goes, well, at least they got to make it. They had something in their head, and as crude and crazy as it might have been, it's pretty incredible that they got together with people and convinced them of their vision and convinced an actor to do it on screen and everything else. So there's something about that just I absolutely love, and you can't really get it outside of that specific kind of genre of film or that sector of film.
I was just doing it, but sometimes one of my favorite things I love to do is go to our list of, because we keep a catalog of everything that we've covered, so it's helpful for people who are discovering the show, or maybe they watch a movie on Letterboxd and they're like, wow, there's a podcast who's talked about this movie. Like, that's why we kind of maintain that. But we keep a list of every single film that we've covered, and you can sort, obviously, naturally on Letterboxd by popularity. So it's very fun to sort it by popularity and just scroll to the very bottom and be like, what were these films that we were talking about, Jimmy? What person made us talk about like The Body Shop or, or Frauds? This is the one that had Phil Collins in it, right? As like in Hugo Weaving, like an evil puppeteer. Like we've talked about so much stuff that we otherwise would have never put our eyes on either. So, the self-discovery maintains consistent through the whole show that we really appreciate as well. We love having a guest on being like, what's like the weirdest movie that you think is sick that no one's seen? We'd love to have people do that.
When someone comes on and they, if anyone listening to this uses Letterboxd, you probably know if there's a movie with, less than 10,000 logs is actually not a lot, but like less than 1,000, if something like that comes onto the show.
I just remembered Dr. Alien by David Dakota. If you
right. Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. I don't know. I know that we're in for a treat because so few people have seen it, but someone's bringing it on the show. So there's just going to be something that I've never seen before, and that gets me excited every single time. There's always like repeated themes on the show that probably recur every few weeks, and so we might repeat ourselves in that sense, but it's always in a different context. So
it's novel every time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know, I enjoy it no matter how many body horror movies I watch. I don't get sick of it because there's just always something fresh and something new in that film that we're watching. So
well, one of the recurring conversation points that I have on this podcast is this through line through cinema history and how these films are in conversation with one another. It's not like music, right, where you can sample a chord or sample a drum break and repurpose it, unless you're doing something really experimental, like some sort of video installation project or something like that, where you're literally remixing an old film. You could put the old film on a TV screen that a character is watching, and that's your love letter or reference to that old film.
Or you could be Tarantino and you could just steal a shot here, a music here, all in one scene, right?
Right, exactly. But there is some degree, even in something like Quentin Tarantino, that he's still in conversation with cinema history. And I think what you guys are doing is in a similar vein. Even if you watch hundreds of body horror movies, they're kind of all in conversation with one another, but doing something new every time, right? Like the techniques get passed down. How do you make a chest rip open? How do you make blood gush out of someone's throat? Yeah. It's like
the thing that one of the most like I don't know, fascinating things that I've seen on the show is just watching films from every decade and kind of just seeing the progression of effects and gore, and also just what people were allowed to do depending on the decade. Like it's just
depending on whether or not you were Italian.
yeah, that too. Yeah, you go Italian, it seems like the earlier decades they were doing stuff way before we were.
When we were doing Mario Bava movies, I remember that being one of the few times that Jamie was shocked, because we were being like, how is Mario Bava like 10 years ahead of every single stuff that we had watched? Because we kind of got around to him, we did him a little bit after doing some Argento, and we got really into Fulci for a while. So we actually probably covered Fulci more than Bava for a little while.
Yeah.
When we eventually got to Bava, and you get to something like Bay of Blood, which he made in, I can't remember if it's 71 or 72, but like it, he's doing like the Friday the 13th, like camp slasher basically 10 years before it was a thing. And then you do something like Blood and Black Lace, which is obviously one of the prototypical giallos, one of the earliest, most popular examples. But like Argento didn't get around to being that gory and that grisly and that stylish until even Bird with the Crystal Plumage and onward, which was like almost 10 years later. Like Blood and Black Lace is 1964. And we were like, this has the black gloved killer. This has him in a, neon lit fashion house, and it is bloody and it is gross.
Yeah.
And we, so, and being able to trace that history. And sometimes it, it does make our show a little bit like, it took us a few years to get around to doing that. We were like, damn, maybe our conversations would have been a little bit more informed if we covered it a little earlier. But I don't know. Also, the flaws in the discovery process and the natural discovery process has been a good part of it.
I think also very relatable for the audience, right? Like not everyone who's listening to your show is as well trained and or well read on film.
It's true. We wanted it to be for people who don't also have this knowledge. Come along, discover it.
Yeah, because the show definitely also wants to. It doesn't. I don't want it to feel intimidating. I want it to feel as if we're like welcoming people into this weird underground space of film.
Come into our corner of the grocery store.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you want to see some weird shit. Yeah, exactly. So it's I like that kind of openness about it, and not to feel as if it's like. I mean, I think we get really detailed. So the the film nerds will like that, but I think that it also. It's fun. It's just it has to be, given the movies that we watch. So I think that also gives kind of a welcoming spirit to it all.
I think we can jump back into the origins of your podcast and bring up episode 1, which is I wanted to chat about the Hills.
I will say I played a couple minutes of it back for myself.
Dude, I'll never listen to it.
Why do you talk so slowly? Speed it up. Jesus.
Oh
I feel like we said nothing and it was 30 minutes. I look at it now and I'm just like, I don't know. Our show has really evolved. Our show is a lot longer. This is where something
That's true.
Like our first episode, I don't remember how long. It's maybe an hour.
59 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it's like
something.
literally an hour. That would never happen. That would never happen.
Is it? So okay, so it was what was it? The Hills Have Eyes and what
Hills
was the
Have Eyes
other
and
one?
Spider Baby.
And we only talked for an hour? That's insane to me. I haven't looked at it in so long.
Now we would do like an hour on Hills Have Eyes.
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, and we would break down every scene and every actor, and you know, it part of it was hit a little bit by the fact that some people would be, well, why didn't they talk about that part? Why didn't they talk about that part? And so we do get ahead of ourselves a little bit. We're a little bit like, we got to make sure we hit this.
Completionist, right?
We got to make sure that, you know, we do better research than we used to do, and we come prepared with some actor biographies and, you know a little bit more about the director. And I mean, one thing I realized that we did not talk about, just because at a certain point I couldn't listen to it anymore, so I literally just played read the transcription back.
Funny.
But I was looking for it, and I was like, how did these bozos never bring up that the production designer for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the production designer on Hills Have Eyes? We mentioned it. We talked so much about the fact that, well, Texas Chainsaw happened, and a lot of people talk about it as like a ripoff, and we never mentioned that they were the same production, literally reusing like the bones.
I think you might have.
I couldn't find it in the transcription. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully someone plays it back and investigates it and sees it.
We're actually really good in our first year.
That would be awesome. But
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is obviously name dropped in that episode.
It is name dropped because we compare it, but I don't think I mentioned that the guy, like, it's literally the production designer literally taking like the bones and the things he used from the set from one movie and putting it into another one. And that was something that I was like, we would not miss that now.
No, for sure.
There's also like I remember just being, because I wasn't used to these kind of films yet. I've seen a few of them. I did like gore. I liked, rough around the edges art and all of that stuff. But I didn't know how to really watch these movies, and I didn't understand like certain stylizations and directing moves and stuff. And so I remember I don't remember specifics, but I remember being way too nitpicky on certain things, like, I would like dislike something really ridiculous and then be like, okay, well, I can't possibly 4-star this movie. But yeah, like it was just the way that I think I was operating on reviewing movies and taking in art was just way too like almost, I don't want to insult anybody, but that kind of it's like that YouTuber brain of like yes, exactly, like that kind of crap. Exactly what you're talking about. I really don't like that way of taking in art and giving your opinion on it. It just
it
feels so.
Too, Jamie?
Oh yeah, one microphone in the middle of a table with a bi mic. Yeah, like a bi microphone. Oh, that's just awesome. Brutal, just wild stuff. So yeah, just stuff like that. I am happy to say I feel like I've kind of just let go of these really nitpicky things that were probably in the first. I don't even know if it's the first year, maybe even just the first few episodes, but I got used to more low budget filmmaking, and I mean, now I love it. I'm absolutely in love with it. So.
I do miss when I could do an episode like that and I could be like, yeah, Jamie, this is the guy who did Last House on the Left. And you'd be like, whoa,
yeah.
Last House on the Left was this guy's first movie? Like, Jamie is not like that. He's watched so many movies. And even if he hadn't, he would look up the guy now. Like, we had a totally different vibe when we first started the show, which was great because it did feel like I felt so smart the first year of the show. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything, but it was awesome.
I want to get back to that feeling.
So true.
I want to get back to that feeling of discovery, for sure, and like feeling surprised by film. But I just real quick with Jamie too. Could you imagine? Think of like your favorite lo-fi. What is this thumbs up, man? This happens every time with StreamYard. Could you imagine? Think of your favorite like lo-fi album recording that's done in someone's garage. It's done with someone's home setup recording with unprofessional recording equipment, and discarding that album because it wasn't recorded in a studio, right? That would be absurd, and you would lose so much of metal history, of music history, just at least in the recorded sphere, right? Not just like where genres come from. But
I thought you were gonna say Springsteen now in theaters. He recorded Nebraska.
Oh, sure.
For me, I was thinking of Blaze Foley. There's this album called Live at the Austin Outhouse, I think it's called. It's my favorite country record. I'm not huge on country, but this like the really raw outlaw stuff I think is great. And that whole record is just him in front of 20 people at a bar, and you can hear like people are basically not even paying attention to what he's doing. He is just showing his entire soul. And you hear people playing like pool in the background and telling somebody to shut up, and
peanuts or off the bar.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so like, yeah, that whole album, honestly, without the whole lo-fi aspect of it, wouldn't be nearly as powerful. And I think that translates to a ton of films that we've covered on the show, where it's like, if you didn't have this kind of gritty presentation and these almost like this like outlaw, no rules kind of thing, you just wouldn't get what
they wouldn't have the power, they wouldn't have the weight. I mean, it was a huge part of our conversation about Texas Chainsaw, is we went part of the danger of that movie is you watch it and it's so crude,
it's
and
visceral,
it's so,
right?
There are moments in it where you're like, am I about to watch a snuff film? Like, it's not actually that graphic or violent when you rewatch it, but it feels that way, and it's because of that lo-fi-ness.
Lo-fi-ness, the handheld camera, the yeah, absolutely. On a personal anecdote, I've had some very funny conversations with my dad listening to music in the car. I'm just thinking of like showing him Car Seat Headrest, the first couple albums that Will Toledo literally recorded in his car on his MacBook on GarageBand, and being like, asking me, why does it sound like shit, and me having to be like, it's supposed to sound like shit. That's what makes it good. That's what makes it good and interesting, Dad. And then, but for some reason, the music, maybe it's hard to translate fully, but he loves King Gizzard, so I'm like, hey, listen to this King Gizzard album. This sounds like shit. I mean, it's called garage rock for a reason. It's supposed to sound gritty and lo-fi. That's like the tonal, elements that are interesting to people who are into this sort of genre. And the same thing with direct to video. I remember, again, this Twisted Issues screening that you had, seeing the pixels of a video camera on the big screen is a
crazy,
textural experience like no other, right?
Yeah.
And sitting down and watching Noroi, The Curse, with my dad, and being like, okay, this is a handheld documentary style, found footage style film that's not going to look good. It's going to look weird. It's going to look lo-fi. It looks handmade, but isn't that the creepy part? And that clicked with him. And I think that's sort of the moving away from that, Jamie, that idea of critiquing film on a technical level. How well did they pull this off visually? How well are they using their resources? And moving to vibe-based critique and how the movie makes you feel. Does it get under your skin? What does it say about, the grand scheme of things, society or whatever?
Yeah, and I think I mean, this is kind of related. It's like another thing on the show is there's this thing about like so bad it's good kind of thing. We don't really believe in it. I get a little cross sometimes, because I do think every once in a while there'll be something in the technical sense of a film that I go, that could have been improved a little more, even if I know the rest of the film is supposed to be grittier. But I do think that people kind of like,
we just didn't want to be a bad movie podcast. We didn't want to we didn't want to be people who felt they were above a movie or making fun of a movie,
punching down, right?
And even if we don't like something and it is poorly made, we try to be, act in good faith towards.
Well, you're not Mystery Science Theater, right?
Exactly. Well, that was something we were worried about, because we knew there was going to be crossover in some of the movies we were going to be talking about. We were going to be going into the dumpsters of movie history looking for gems, and we kind of wanted to be like, we're not doing this for like a gleeful, let's tear a movie down. So we try our best.
We choose movies that, like, I think 9 times out of 10 we like the movie. We really want to like movies. The whole attitude of like looking for shit is not really, what we're
even when we eventually got around to covering Uwe Boll, I remember we did House of the Dead. And that's historically one of the worst. We all gave it 1s across the board. We tried to be honest.
I think I might have 2'd it, to be honest with you.
That might have been the case. I do distinctly remember, because it might be the only time I ever gave it. I gave this the high 1.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think I gave it the low 2, because I remember feeling like it like that movie is pretty bad. But I
And it didn't
remember
matter. He still yelled at us on Twitter about it.
he
Really?
did yell at us.
Wait, that's so funny.
He called Josh like a bitch or something.
Yeah,
it was
pretty
so
good.
funny.
We loved it.
It was.
Oh
I have
my
it screenshotted somewhere. It's a very. I
think we did
enjoy
that, and
looking at
we
it.
did the Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evil film. I think that was our video game zombie adaptations.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And I do remember though, even with that movie being really, really awful. I remember there were these moments that I could not, like, my brain couldn't wrap around them, that somebody edited it and still presented it that way. And for some reason, those moments still made me kind of entertained. And I am the kind of person that doesn't usually want something unless my experience was like just completely dreadful. If I just sit there for an hour and a half and I just want to die, then I'll want your movie. But even if it's awful, if I get something out of it, I'll probably still throw you another
Hey,
star.
at least you get those really fast, like, bullet time sequences, which we remember being so baffled by, but then everyone loved them when they saw them in 28 years later recently.
Exactly. Yui
think
Bowl
there's
before his time.
I think there's a new term that's emerged from this rejection of so bad it's good ideology, but still realizing that there is trash out there, and it's vulgar altruism,
Of course.
right? And maybe that's more in line where you still give credence to Paul W.S. Anderson, you give credence to someone like Uwe Boll, where it's like you really want to give this fair shot that you do with every other film.
Yeah.
But it's so vulgar, it's out there, it like just doesn't meet your expectations.
You put the cursed words out into the world, vulgar auturism.
Oh, is that okay?
You're gonna get so many people yelling at you. Just so you know, I'm just letting you know.
Oh, okay.
I've been around on internet film spaces long enough that it's a very, very controversial thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who just go, well, it's just auturism. You're just doing auturism, which is honestly kind of true. But at the same time, you know, the word vulgar came in because it was like trying to approach auteurs who are maybe working in modes that are less respectable, even though it was applied to a lot of filmmakers that I don't think people would think that about, like Michael Mann, for example. I don't think there's anyone who watches Heat and goes anything, but this is pretty the high art version of a crime film, you know.
But I think it can help. I think it also can help, like when people are initially getting into these things, if you have something like vulgar in front of it, where it's almost like a preparation. Because I think that sometimes people watch these movies and then they just see it visually for what it is, the presentation of it, and they automatically go, this is a bad movie. And so I think having the preparation in your head of like, this is what it's going to look like, so you need to, at the very least, just engage with that, can help. But I understand it being,
or sometimes it's literally, it is just deliberately a vulgar movie, and you need to, you know, it is good prep for that. I mean, I think about that with, you know, all the Michael Bay auturists out there try very, very, very hard to be like, no, this is what it's good because it's like this, and you're like, but it's overwhelming and I don't like it. It's Maximus, it's hypercut. I don't understand.
Right, and then that does go to tastes too at a certain point. Like, I mean, not everybody wants to watch the most extreme body horror or the most fast-paced action thing. I do understand that. So there will be times, of course, where I'm like,
there were people at our screening of Twisted Issues who hated that movie, and it was kind of awesome. I kind of loved it.
It's great.
I saw the 1-star reviews after the movie ended, and I was like, I'm giving those a like too.
I definitely get a satisfaction of in some way where I watch something and I watch people kind of walk out every once in a while. Like don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean I'm automatically going to like the movie, but just that, I don't know. I just like when art makes someone react to that kind of viscerally, or
make
that
them uncomfortable.
A little bit. Push yourself
with a purpose, mind you.
Yeah. I really don't like just crude for the sake of it, or miserable for the sake of it, or whatever. To be honest, I am probably guilty of liking gore for the sake of it. That is just something, for some reason, for me, it's makeup effects. I find that to be so fascinating.
Sure.
But you know, just all that stuff for the sake of it, I definitely don't like. I want there to be some substance, but I don't know, more and more these days, I don't mind style over substance more and more.
And we've always been, speaking of other ethos we have, if we have any, it's style is substance.
Yeah, totally.
speaking of your bringing up the fact that we were like, yeah, a lot of these movies we're going to talk about for the next 7 to 8 years and who knows how long afterward, there's going to be not much to them. What you're going to hope for is that the director is doing something in terms of style that, you know, does make it different. It does make it feel like you're not just watching another body horror movie. You're watching their beamed transmission from their minds. They're trying to tell you something.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of the discourse is centered around giving films that were at the time of release rejected by the masses or by critics and giving them a new life. And I think that's exactly what you guys are doing. That's maybe where the vulgar altruism, I'm not going to use that word anymore. You've scared me out of it.
I personally have no problem with it. Go ahead. I'm just letting you know that I've been in enough internet spaces. I've been yelled at for saying it before that I just don't do
You're going to get tweeted at.
Yeah, right. I mean, I like it so much more than it's so bad it's good. I think that's so dismissive. But at the same time, okay, this goes to, I mean, you guys, again, have seen so many films for the podcast on your own time at this point. There's something beautiful to going into a film completely blind.
Oh, yeah.
There's something beautiful about not having any expectations set by someone saying, this is good because it's vulgar, this is good because of X, it's good because it matches in this list on Letterboxd or in this category, the superficial category, and going in completely blind. Do you guys still have that sense of discovery, or is there some blockage now because you're prepping for this podcast and maybe there's some expectations that are set before you even get into the film?
I feel like when we do our own programming, it definitely feels like we try to be prepared for it. So like we're frequently watching stuff all year long, doing research and coming up with being like, we see a movie and we're like, oh, that would pair really well with this movie. And so like when we're doing our own programming, I would say that sense of discovery can be a little muted. Every once in a while, I will blindly just be like, I don't really know what this is, but it sounds like in terms of loose plot, it kind of pairs with this thing. So sometimes we get it there. But I would say structuring the show around all of the free episodes being a guest and pitching to the guest the idea that, you know, it is an A picture, B picture type thing, but don't be too, you know, hung up on that. And basically we try to tell people that, like, imagine you could program your own night at like the New Bev, 2 movies that you think work together, and maybe one, if you could, that's really personal and you feel is kind of underseen. That's kind of what we ask for people. So not everybody does it, but the few people who do show us something we've literally never heard of, and it does happen, that's where that still exists. And so choosing that as like a sort of a structuring way of doing the show has kept that alive for sure. When we just have a guest come on and be like, what did Perry bring on this year, Jamie? It melted our minds. After last season, talk about so bad it's good. Like
Oh right, yes, he that was a mind melter. Like I didn't end up.
We had a hard time talking about it because it was the rare time someone brought something on that probably was designed to be talked about in a so bad it's good. Our brain, Jamie's brain specifically, was pretty broken by having to have that conversation about it.
Yeah, it was, because like I actually did see kind of the merit in it and like why people would like it. But there was a lot that was still going against it that would lead me to believe it was a bad movie, with a lot of interesting thoughts.
By all objective measures, someone made a really cheap film, and you could not tell how on purpose it was, but the entire thing felt like a bizarre dream. And that was when we started being like, how impacted by that did you get, you know?
And then there's also a talk that we have about like intention. It's like, how important is intention when it just makes you feel a certain way? Like if someone mistakenly makes a masterpiece, is it still a masterpiece kind of thing?
We want to throw another term in, death of the author. There you go. That's what we're talking about.
It's just
if
like,
he gives an interview saying this is what the movie is about, but you watch it and it's not how it makes you feel. It's not what it objectively is, or at least subjectively is. Then it's like, is that actually what it is? And yeah, we are very much subscribed to, we don't know what this guy was trying to make, but this is how it makes me feel, and this is what it is to me.
And that's kind of out there in the world. It's for the audience.
Exactly.
And that's kind of nice too, to have like a distance with some of these films, where some of these movies we watch, it's like there's almost no information on them, and so you just have to have your own thoughts about it, because there's no interviews where the director's telling you what his theme was or what he thought about the certain scenes or whatever. You're just kind of interpreting it on your own. And that I like that in a sense. Don't get me wrong, it'd be nice some weeks to have more to read about and understand. But when you do get a film that it's like no one's seen and you just get to kind of interpret it completely blankly with nothing kind of corrupting your brain in any way, it's really nice. Yeah, it's a cool experience, and I do really like it. I will say it's like after doing this for so long, and every week I am still surprised, which I'm surprised that I'm surprised about it at this point, because we've covered, like 1,000 films or something like that. And then at this point I've watched 4,000 or whatever the hell I have on Letterboxd. So it's just kind of shocking that week after week we still find something that we hadn't seen before. Whether that just be something we had, but in a different context, or something that completely comes out of left field. I also
imagine being able to cover the film festival now gives you that same sense of discovery if you're going in blind or just,
because everything's blind pretty much. The only thing you'll know really is like the director, and you might have an idea of what that will bring, but that's about it.
Right. So, or if the film had premiered already and you checked out a review, but really I get that feeling of discovery at the film festival, right? I try and see as much as I can in like really left field. I love Wavelengths. I think Wavelengths is an incredible program at TIFF. I got to interview a director this year from Wavelengths, and it's I'm actually not sure they should have been at Wavelengths. They've been there before, so maybe they're comfortable in that.
Wavelengths is kind of shrinking, but TIFF should work on that.
I know. We talked about that a bit with the director of Copper.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of my favorite films, if maybe not even my favorite film. No, actually, probably second favorite film, but it's up there. Magellan, the Spanish film. So like that one was I carved out the space because I was sitting there going, Wavelengths, this is like an incredibly important part of the festival, and there's not a single year where I go and I don't at least try to see like one or two in my schedule. And I honestly try to make them the endurance ones in particular, because I want that kind of experience. I mean, the one year I saw, I think, Elephant Sitting Still at TIFF, and it was 4 hours. And I was like, I could have watched 2 Oscar-nominated movies in that time, and I wouldn't have wanted to, because the movie was beautiful. And so same with this. And I mean, one of my all-time TIFF experiences is what was Liberty or Liberté? I can't remember how you're supposed to say it. And it's just it's the Albert Serra film.
Okay. I don't think I've heard of it.
It's just a bunch of like
Isn't it like aristocrats or whatever?
It's a bunch of aristocrats going into a dark forest and having an orgy for 2 hours. And I saw it at the Art Gallery of Ontario screening when they used to do screenings there.
Nice.
And I think there was probably about 20 or 30 people when the movie started, and I think about 10 of us made it through the whole thing. And I will never forget it. And an aristocrat, like a French aristocrat, just going like, open the gates of hell and like spreading some butt cheeks is just something TIFF showed that. Wavelengths showed that. Nice. And and it was part of why I saw Magellan, because Albert Serra's cinematographer shot that film, and I was like, it was literally okay, I should go watch this now. You know, like that. That
was a good looking orgy in the woods, man.
There you go. That sense of discovery, you definitely need it.
Okay, let's loop back around to The Hills Have Eyes. Specifically to, first and foremost, I mean, did you get to rewatch it, either of you guys?
We both rewatched it, I believe.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's great. How has it aged in your memory? Was this the first time in a while you had seen it again?
It was literally the first time since we watched it on the show.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I think me too.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't notice, this is just kind of just on my own personal experience on my Letterboxd, but this movie is kind of underappreciated when it comes to Wes Craven, at least in the people that I follow. A lot of people give it more of like just kind of a general 3-star, and just think it's not as, transgressive as people say it is, or as extreme or as visceral feeling as people say it is. But I don't know, I guess this would be my 3rd time watching it technically, because I think back when we did the episode, I watched it twice, because I was kind of still getting used to these movies or whatever. But I gotta say, like, I liked it even more. I'm even more in love with this movie. So
wow.
Yeah.
How about
That
you?
was my experience so
Yeah,
far.
no, I read back some of our conversation about it afterward, and I took all my notes for this before doing that so that I would kind of be able to compare. How did my notes look now? What kind of notes do I take now versus what did I say on the show previously? And I was surprised at how much my opinion had kind of stayed the same. That
Really? Wow.
I did a little bit more detail now. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was looking back at it and I was like, damn, okay. I expected to be more offended by my own take than I was. And I was like, no, this still kind of holds true. It helped for me that it was episode 1. Jamie at that point really did just kind of let me program the show entirely. Like there's more back and forth now. Jamie has come up with a couple fantastic episodes that we've done, but like early on, it was like the show Jamie stuff show. And so there was a reason that was the first thing that I chose, and part of it was because for me, Wes Craven is just such a formative filmmaker who got me thinking about genres and what it is that filmmakers do, and Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street in particular were two of the first ones that I watched that got me really thinking, and especially Scream because it was about movie nerds being murdered, and it was so that that was something that really clicked with me. And because of that, Wes Craven was just a name that I learned early on before I paid attention to who directors were and what it was that they actually did. And when my mom took me to sort of like Blockbuster Video to go and like rent movies, his covers stood out to me. When I saw a Wes Craven movie and you saw just the face, and in the case of Hills Have Eyes, you saw Michael Berryman's face. And obviously he's using an actor who has a birth defect in order to get that, but also a little bit of makeup. And that was something that really just kind of left an impression with me. And so when I said we're going to start this show, we definitely kind of want to start in a sleazier realm, a cruder realm. I don't know how Inbred Cannibals was the
first theme.
Was the perfect
theme,
start.
because I don't know where. I think I had seen Spider Baby recently. I think that was literally all it was. I saw Spider Baby and I went, oh, Inbred Cannibals before Hills Have Eyes. That would be a good pairing, and that was just how we opened it. But I just knew I wanted to start with Craven because Craven was he's been a personal favorite filmmaker for a long time, and so that was where it came from.
Well, the film joins the echelon of movies about inbred horrors, right? With Spider Baby, Barbarian, The Hills Have Eyes, Deliverance. There's a lot of movies that encapsulate this specific anxiety about, to me, it's purity of some kind, eugenics related, adjacent concerns about.
I had forgotten that the family talks like the sort of like Hicksploitation characters in Deliverance. Because we only covered Deliverance just last year, maybe I can't even remember. And
it was really recently, I think, actually.
And then I was sitting there being like, wow, the family of cannibals in Hills Have Eyes absolutely kind of talk like those characters, but if they had like radios, and if they were they were kind of like bozo siblings or something like that.
And I do
there you go.
And I do really love the opposite, like where they have the family be some kind of these like archetypes, like Bobby, who eventually turns violent. It starts off with like doing the most perfect handsprings and somersaults and backflips and stuff.
That's right.
While he's riding into the desert, and then the dad too has like a lot of honestly pretty awful things to say about like where he is and how annoying his family is to him and all of that. So
having covered so many Craven movies at this point, we have come to terms with the fact that he does not like his father. Every father character in a Wes Craven movie is, even when you have dueling fathers in this, you have the patriarch of the cannibal family, you have the detective of this family. He doesn't really like either of them, and in fact he thinks that both of them have either one has ill prepared his children for what the world is like, and the other one has made his children into these kind of more beastly characters. And that's something that I think I was surprised about when we originally rewatching it for when we covered it on the show, because I had seen it before and I had never kind of picked up on the fact that in comparison to something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where that family is sadistically evil in a way, and still a way that's extremely powerful and incredibly great. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I did put it on my Sight and Sound list because I was trying to get a horror movie onto the Sight and Sound.
Nice.
Texas Chainsaw has the shot. We're going for it.
Sure.
But I was surprised at how much Craven kind of leaves it open that these kids were made, and even the cannibal kids were made into being this way. And how much he kind of shows the daughter character Ruby like actually trying to save the baby, and even the one cannibal death, the one dumb kid who just gets pushed off a cliff by a dog.
Yeah, that's right.
I was like, it's funny, but at the same time you go, damn, that guy didn't really do anything.
Yeah, right. And it does feel like when they're presented in a way that's clearly like they would be impressionable, that does make you start to question just when they start dying off, like how much of a fault do they really have, especially given their circumstance. I mean, that's part of the reason they're looking at the family and just being like, you're going to come into our place that you've already made our lives a living hell, or at least you're the representation of that. And so we have to take you out. We have to, kind of present us as it's like the alpha family or something like that.
Yeah. And why he made all those choices became so much more clear to us when we, because we talked about Craven so much on this show. It's actually like crazy at this point. But
yeah,
one of the most sort of uniting things that we've talked about in every conversation about him, basically, it's sort of similar to sort of Paul Schrader's upbringing. He grew up in a very sort of fundamentalist, sort of Protestant, very strict, sort of abusive home from the father. That's why the father characters end up like that. That's why when we watch Shocker, which was one of his like post Nightmare on Elm Street movies that he did, the twist of that is that Peter Berg is like the football playing all-American boy, because he loves the all-American boy, the suburb. It's where he grew up. But then he goes, but that is a facade, and it doesn't tell you what the world is actually like. And so in Shocker, it's like the dad is literally a serial killer who gets killed and then turns into a supernatural slasher villain like Freddy Krueger or something like that. And, so Craven runs away from home, finds out what movies are, gets into the porno film industry, which is where you get that crudeness and that lo-fi-ness. He becomes friends with Sean Cunningham, who did obviously Friday the 13th. And I've even watched his porno movies, because I was like, I've seen every Wes Craven movie. I went through and found every single one that was out there to find. That's how much I, was interested in his story.
Yeah.
And we've broken his career into kind of like the two different eras. And, obviously you have the sort of post Nightmare on Elm Street. You get into things like Shocker, People Under the Stairs, Scream, obviously, New Nightmare. He kind of maintains, I think, that the ideas of like the family unit under duress, the illusion of sort of the suburb as like the safe place, especially in something like Nightmare on Elm Street. Like the kids get fucking annihilated in that movie, but the parents are trying to deny it. A child's escape from sort of repression or abuse in some kind of way, and obviously the sins of the parents, which is such a huge thing now in Nightmare on Elm Street, where they created Freddy in a way, and he's why it's coming after them. But the prototype, before he hit that, he was in a much more like shock sadist kind of mode, because he was really angry. He was so angry at the idea that like his family tried to pose like how you'll see the family in The Hills Have Eyes here. You have a gymnast son, blonde hair, got the Ohio State shirt. Yeah, they got the perfect baby. They got the perfect dogs named Beauty and Beast. Like there is this family unit that he wants to disrupt. And you could say the same thing about Last House on the Left, where he goes even more intense with it. You could argue like the fact that those two parents have to watch what happens to their daughter, and obviously the way that he uses sexual assault specifically as a way to really shock the audience, because rape revenge films were kind of taking off around that time. And he was obviously also coming from the porn industry. But the idea, I think, was that here is this family unit who does not believe what the world actually is, and here is the savagery that actually exists out there if you were to turn on your television and watch something, see Vietnam War imagery or see Manson family imagery and things like that. And I think that early on in his career, Craven was like, I'm going to sucker punch every single person who walks into a grindhouse, and I'm going to hit them with that idea. You think you're safe, you're going to a movie, you are not safe.
And I'm going to make an example of the father figure, like the head leader of this kind of like suburban family and everything, like him dying in the most brutal way in this movie.
Oh my god, I actually forgot how elongated it is.
And the details compared to everyone else, like most of the people when they die, it's kind of like a scuffle and a stabbing or something like that. The father gets kidnapped and then crucified too, which has to, I mean, that's got to be a connection, one, to how angry he was with his father, but then his religious upbringing. Having both of those images be such a staple in this movie is,
and making him like a
like
conservative cop who like says slurs and stuff too. Like there's a very pointed thing about the way that they use the father in this, and that father gets what I think Craven thinks he deserves, but at the same time, it's also, I don't think he's
and then there's
on here.
That's the thing, and then but then it's like he does dive into the cruelty, and you do see maybe a little bit of Craven kind of enjoying it, and then though he can't help himself, but also understand the consequences of such violence, like when his wife reacts in a way that she can't even accept the fact that it's happened. Like she's just like, that's not my Bob, that's not my Bob, over and over and over again. So that there's still like a reverberation of just dread
Denial.
that's gonna happen. And so it's like, even though maybe he is kind of enjoying this slightly out of like a cathartic experience or something, he can't help but understand that this isn't leading anywhere good as well. But I like that honesty. I really do.
Oh, sure.
Perfect.
We were talking about the family unit and basically the nuclear family getting dissected in this film, and juxtaposition next to the inbred cannibal family and the all-American family that is now exposed to this sort of violence for the first time. But also, the father is aware of the sort of horrors, the violence that exists in the city. And as we said before, he also drops a slur, and he is definitely fed up and wants to escape the city. So they are suburb, they exist in some sort of suburb, it looks like, right? They're like college boys, and then the family.
And they're driving to San Diego, I think.
That's right.
They're passing through the Nevada, through the Mojave Desert, where there is a nuclear testing facility with like jets just dropping nukes, I guess, while they're riding around. It's a pretty janky setup, honestly, but it is. I like the crudeness of the movie. So
yeah. But so like nuclear family existing in a nuclear testing facility is also a very funny pun there that may or may not be intentional. And then it's never explicitly said that these the hills have eyes. The people living in this desert are affected by radiation, right? It's
kind of looks like
that's right. That's the implication, the obvious implication.
Yeah, but it could be the inbreeding as well.
Yeah, and I think they do. Like, have you guys seen the remake in 2006? I think. Okay, because I think in the remake,
Extremity guys, I think Alexander Aja did that one. That movie's nasty as hell too.
Oh, wow.
It is. I do like it. I do think it's a decent remake. But
that's more of a vulgar thing. That's like they do like a Bush era satire of how just absolutely repulsive can we make Americans. It's a bit of a different vibe.
And I think in the remake, they explicitly do the whole, like, they have this exposition scene where this guy has the giant, like, mutated brain. So he's kind of hanging over his chair, and he explains that all these testings did this to his family. And so they started breeding and all of that. So I think you're right that they don't say it in this one.
They don't say
it's
it,
more
but I
just
think it
implied.
is meant to be implied based on where they are.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how the horrors that definitely exist in the suburbs, the sort of thing that Wes Craven is eking at. Now they're unable to escape. They're in the middle of the desert, and they're encountering new horrors.
Yeah, it turns almost like a siege film or something.
Yeah,
right. Like more of like a Carpenter kind of.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I wonder how much, since the first time watching the film, maybe as you encounter more and more political films, and you've carved your niche as a leftist film critic, as somebody who is very much aware of the critiques of American imperialism, American violence with, I mean, we're talking about a nuclear testing facility, right? Yeah. We're talking about the Air Force. We see fighter jets. I wonder how much that's changed since you first watched the film. Is there any sort of new emotionality or empathy you have for Wes Craven and his kind of annoyance at that time since you've watched that film for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we got around to doing it on the show and I kind of read about some interviews with him and watched some stuff, that was the first time I kind of paid more attention that Hills Have Eyes isn't just like a gross movie where a family gets attacked. You know, I did start to be like, oh, like Craven was smuggling personal and political anxieties that he has a lot of anger towards and a lot of strong feelings about, and he was trying to shock you with them through the form. So I don't know how much it has changed. In fact, I actually think it was more of like a source of, it made me start to be like, I should be researching other films to see, like, to think more about that when I watch them. Because sometimes you do watch a genre movie and you go, oh yeah, this is just a bunch of cannibals cutting people up, trying to eat a baby, all the things that they do. And
it's just shocking. You could just watch it that way if you wanted to,
Sure.
but there's so much more. Yeah.
Yeah, and but it definitely provided a lens, I think, in which to think about other filmmakers are probably doing this kind of stuff. And it was definitely, something I had thought about before we even started our show, but it was, it was a helpful lens moving forward through the show to be like, what is this person actually, what were they feeling? What were they going through? What, especially, I mean, I have to say it, because we jump eras so much, what was the anxieties of the time?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah,
what
specifically,
exactly. Like, and when we're in the 40s, when we're in the 50s, like, we were like, what was happening that these filmmakers, especially when we travel around the world, part of our favorite parts of the show is that sometimes we go over to different countries and different, in different times as well, and they're going through different things as well. So, I mean, we just finally did our Akira Kurosawa High and Low and The Bad Sleep Well, where we were talking about, so much of how what he's doing in that film is a response to, the sort of new economic boom that Japan had after in the post-war reconstruction, and how so many people were left behind by it.
Right.
Some people were welcomed into this new cutthroat economy where there was some prosperity, but there were a lot of people that weren't. And you see that in the texture of the film, just how he shoots it. It's something that if you don't like look up, you might not know, but it's something that was hugely on his mind. So yeah, no, I think that this was maybe a more simplistic lens and kind of obvious now that I look at it, and I go, well, of course, the stuff is, he's not being subtle about it, but it's definitely an incredibly useful lens, I think, for people who are first getting into thinking about film that way.
Yeah, I remember, it's not, it's not that I didn't understand subtext or anything like that when I was initially watching films with Josh or anything, but it did, like, I've gotten better at reading films and maybe just understanding what a certain shot means in reference to what he's trying to say, rather than just making a nice framing, it's kind of reading the style better. And like, for instance, I really love, just aside from even like ones like personal politics or anything, like when, I've already said it, I guess, but when you find out something very personal, like his relationship with his father and religion, and then you have the crucifixion scene, that scene just automatically becomes so much more powerful once you know that. And I don't think, when I was initially watching this film, I really didn't know much about Wes Craven other than the movies I loved from him. And so I think that that's been something that I've more focused on, is to actually read into the people making these films in their personal lives, because there's so much that you can get from it. There's another film, was it White of the Eye, Josh?
Yeah.
Where we
almost like American Giallo kind of film.
Yeah, and we got into some details of the director's life and personal life and how he ended his life and things like that. And then when you know that context and then watch these scenes again, it's just like you can't help but just read it that way and read it a little deeper in that context. So that was something I think I've grown more interested in, and also I would hope gotten better at. So yeah.
We keep bringing up Giallo, but I think that's a perfect example of reaction to the sort of political zeitgeist of the time. If you're looking at post-fascist Italy and how they're coming to terms with the fact that normal people are capable of violence and oppression, and the people that are still in our society that haven't faced consequences for what happened. And now they're in power. They're in the police force. They're judges. There are teachers,
we spent a lot of time talking about the years of lead specifically on the show too, and all the police Tetskis that came out of that, when it was like, there was violence on the streets that people saw every day. There was violence and corruption in the newspapers that you read every single day. And so those filmmakers were like, how do we turn this into an entertaining,
how do we make it sexy? That's kind of
sexy.
It's kind of interesting to watch that too, like where you feel, what they're like, that just comes with exploitation films. But sometimes you do get a little bit like, how much should I enjoy this? Because they are having a ton of fun doing it, even though
Right.
these themes should be probably taken very seriously and looked
I
at
remember when
with a
we got a
microscope.
little crosswire talking about "Live Like a Cop, Die Like a Man," which is one of our
Sure.
favorite Piotetskis, and it was the two handsome 70s Italian cops like riding on like a moped like together around town
Yeah.
and sharing an apartment and sharing women. There's a very homoerotic, very silly charge to the movie.
Mhm.
But then the basis of that movie is that these guys are like evil cops.
Yeah.
Like they are going
Yeah.
around town and just like beating the shit out of people and
And
causing
yet you have
so much
scenes with them
destruction.
like doing jokes with each other in their apartment in their like Speedo underwear and stuff, and it just feels so like I'm
Yeah.
having fun with these guys, and they are kind of charming, and but they're also just blatantly awful human beings, and
Right.
that it
Yeah.
does get your wires crossed.
And
for
they're
sure.
very clearly just like a symbol for how people felt in Italy about the cops at that
Yeah.
time, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, it's definitely something we think about now. Every time we're in a specific era in a specific country, we're kind of like, what was happening that this was born from?
I always
Yeah.
think of investigation of a citizen above suspicion.
Yeah.
This sneaky smile, the fact that he knows he can get away with everything.
Yeah.
And to the point of the climax. Jamie, did you see that? Have you seen that film?
No, I don't think I have actually.
Okay, if you wanna unplug, I'm gonna spoil it real quick. But
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
it's an incredible film. It's dissecting the same exact paranoias that Italian society was feeling about the police and how they were the driving force of the secret police and oppressing resistance movements in fascist Italy. The climax of that film is that the police officer straight up tells everyone that he did it.
Yeah.
That this is here. I did it. Just arrest me. Please arrest me. And they're like, nah.
Nah, he's good.
Nah, he's fine. He's not. He
Make
didn't.
him a judge.
You make him a judge. Like,
Yeah, promote him.
Promotion. Okay, but back to Hills Have Eyes in the same way. These are a normal family, a nuclear family, faced with shocking violence and corrupted forces. Again, this parallel adjacent feeling that we get anytime we see a film with inbreeding, the kind of purity and corruption.
Yeah, versus like the
dichotomy.
picture perfect, like blonde, sporty son doing, as Jamie has highlighted, gymnastics around. and-
Exactly. And then confronted with that corruption and being perfectly capable of violence in the matter of a 90-minute film.
Yep.
I mean, is that something that thread is like throughout Wes Craven's films? I feel like there's always this element of innocence that is then corrupted, and people are capable of violent acts.
Yeah, and having to
horrific
rise
acts.
to it, we're all in a sort of collective soup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
this
mean,
one specifically was definitely like the family you would not, in terms of how they present themselves and how they look and how we accept that that's what they look like in society. They are equally capable of the level of barbarism that the cannibal family is capable of. That's definitely, I think, why he, of course, ends the film the way that he does. I mean, you can get the alternate ending, which is very funny if you've ever seen it, which
I have
is
not.
yeah, don't they just take Ruby as one of their own, and they're just like, we're just going to
Brenda
make our
and
own?
Ruby actually hold hands, and so the new kids go forth, and they kind of go, "We've rejected our parents, and now and
Yeah.
the same set pieces happen, so the same grisly nastiness of the two different fights happen. It's just structured differently. It's just
It doesn't end with his like sweating face after the
because
stabbing.
the theatrical, they want that power of like the hippie sort of son-in-law who is the one who is the most sort of pacifist, the one who's sort of rejecting all of this sort of booby trap kind of stuff that they're doing throughout the film. Right. He's the one who obviously, of course, gets pushed to the point where he gets into what is like an extended, at first like rock fight, and then a scuffle, and then a knife fight. It's very, very sort of amusingly choreographed. But it obviously concludes with him just stabbing. I think it's Mars is the son that he ends up stabbing to death gruesomely over and over. You just get the choice of the spit coming out, the fade to red for the credits. It's such an amazing decision. And if you go and watch the other version they cut together, it has the scene with Brenda and Bobby using the corpse of the mother as bait, which was a detail I hadn't remembered it had been long enough to get the because I think they are the ones who get the father, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And they drag him around and they take turns fucking shooting him axing him and all these different things that they do. And so they actually put that after the Doug stuff and then go, oh, well, Brenda and Ruby, they helped kill her father. And now they're going off into the new world, the children together, which honestly is probably what Craven probably still does believe on some level. I do think that, you know, he was kind of like, I escaped, kids can escape, you can do it. But I do think that he felt it was more impactful and more shocking in the moment to get the point across, to be like, end on this moment of just Doug becoming just as much of an animal as everything that had been terrifying them for 80 minutes, right?
Yeah, and I mean, maybe it's because we're so used to this kind of style of film at this point, that the more abrupt endings. But when I looked up, I had it on Blu-ray when I was rewatching it, and I saw Play with Alternate Ending, and I kind of forgot what that was, so I looked it up. And I did see people, there were a lot of people that were saying, like, it's like, I love the movie, but that ending is so abrupt. I don't understand what that means. And I just think it's like, it's probably just getting more used to these kind of these films that don't have the most like clean wrap up. I obviously prefer that, especially over the years of doing this. But I think it's when a lot of people, I guess, just if it doesn't outright say like that easy wrap up, it's hard for people to have kind of a finality to the story.
Well, it leaves you on a note not feeling good
at all. Yeah, and it doesn't give you any, like,
the other one,
it's
does
not like
all the same stuff. Doug still becomes a monster. The family still goes through this horrible, you know, sort of grisly altercation they go through with the father. All that same stuff still happens. It just leaves you on that note of being like, oh, well, the two daughters have a future. There's some they can rebuild from this. And the choice to take that from you is just another early angry Craven thing of, you should not feel safe.
Well, we'll talk absolutely. We'll talk about Craven and how he's influenced this genre. I think, arguably, well, it's not fair to give a singular figure to an entire genre, but he is one of the most influential members of the film community, and in terms of how he's influenced the genre.
Yeah, and I think it's because he doesn't allow, like, that kind of discomfort that he makes you sit in is something that makes him so just legendary in horror genre. Like, he could have even had the guy stab Mars and then have this kind of it's over sense of relief. Don't show the family leaving or whatever like that, but just him, like, kind of, you know, it's after the stabbing, he rolls over, he just sits on the rocks and breathes, and you have some sense of relief. But he doesn't do any of that even. He makes you stare into the guy that just stabbed Mars, and you're kind of even in the position of Mars, like, being stabbed.
You're looking up at him from the low angle as if you're the one who just had your, you know, stabbed. For some reason, I had memory hold it. I thought he, like, bashed his head in with, like, a rock or something too, but he does just stab him in the chest over and over again. But you're from the point of view of receiving those stabs for sure in that last shot.
Right. So I feel like that is also where it's just there's a level of discomfort that people aren't used to, and then there's not just something handed over to you of, like, this is it, you wrapped it up, the story's over, congratulations, that kind of thing. It really makes you sit with a few things that are very discomforting, and so I get why people don't take to it, but I love it.
of a charred father screaming, and just used as, like, a distraction so they can break their way into the trailer. And then you have the assault sequence, like, actually in the trailer, which is really horrific. And I mean, a more subtle one that I had forgotten about too, even though I did read back that I had mentioned it when we did it on the first episode of the show, was the zoom in that they do on the dog intestines, the guts.
And it's quick too. It's just like, look at this, like, look at what we did.
It's
and
not
then
enough for the flash cut. He's like, it's a flash cut with a zoom so that you get deeper into it. And I had forgotten that he repeats that shot of the baby in the crib when the two you know, cannibal kids make their way into the trailer. And you're just, through associative power of editing, you just go, oh, they're going to tear this baby apart. And the next thing they're having a conversation about is on the radios, goofily just talking about, like, we're gonna eat this baby. I want to
the sirloin.
I want to eat that baby's toes. You know, like
yeah. And then, I mean, it gets really concerning too. Like at this point, I think, you know, when the violence starts to happen, you understand that Wes might go any direction. And so when one of the cannibals does say, like, kill the baby, because one of them has, like, fought back to the other cannibals and they've gotten word of it, so they're like, kill the baby, you do think in the next 10 minutes maybe he'll do it. It really feels like you get this sense of twisted stomach. Like it's he's very good at making these moments feel incredibly
especially
visceral.
after people walked in and they saw, like, from the director of Last House on the Left, they were like,
yeah,
this
for
guy
real, is he
probably
gonna hold
wasn't
back?
gonna do anything.
Yeah, this guy's probably not gonna hold back. Yeah.
He's tapping into very specific taboos and anxieties about, especially American culture, like how beloved our pets are. That's not something you're supposed to show, the strewn out guts of a family pet. Like, that's like showing, you know, a family member getting torn apart. And some people are even more viscerally upset by a dog or a cat being maimed or murdered on screen than they are.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean,
I think most people,
on
honestly,
our show a bunch of times, but like my wife is very averse to animal deaths over human. She can.
Yeah, my sister.
I throw on a Fulci movie. She's having a great time. She's like, look at this crazy gore. Look at that guy's eyes being ripped out. You know, whatever. It's a zombie. I don't care. But the second, even, you know, it's almost, even if it's like sadly implied that an animal dies like off screen or something, she's like, oh, that just bums me out.
Yeah,
and it
probably
feels about the movie.
She probably loves Argento because she gets the dogs to just rip up the human beings a lot of the time.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah, Craven got a little bit of this too. I did the dog pushing the guy off the cliff. And also ripping out Michael Berryman's jugular.
Right.
Oh,
and getting into the back of his leg too. I forgot they used like
his
a lamb
Achilles
leg.
Yeah.
Pretty gross.
I think that's kind of smart too. Like, I don't know if it's purposely trying to balance the scales a little bit, but to show the outright gutting of a beloved family pet, and then have the second half be the other family pet go, fuck that, that's my homie.
Time.
I'm gonna take revenge.
I
think there's something satisfying about that. Like, once he starts doing like really intelligent things.
About revenge exploitation movies at the time in particular, right? Like, people were really into that stuff. But yeah, doing it with the family dog is funny.
Yeah, like having him push, you know, we talked about him pushing over one of the cannibals, but then immediately after that, they show him being smart enough to like grab the radio and take it back to the family and stuff. So that kind of stuff, even though maybe a little bit, I don't know if you want to, what you want to call it, silly or anything like that.
It is silly. I think it is funny to do like a war between the two families. Like,
and every member is involved. I think that, like, including the dog. I do really enjoy that. And it's just, I'm a dog lover, so I get to say good boy every single time he takes out one of the cannibals, you know?
Obviously, we've talked about how this film, and we'll talk more about how this film influenced and Wes Anderson. Oh, Wes Anderson. What's wrong with me?
Do them all.
Yeah, we're doing all the Wes's.
Wes Craven influenced.
I don't think we've actually ever talked about Wes Anderson on the show. We should at some point, though.
I'm editing.
Yeah, I don't know.
No one's ever going to see that. Wes Craven influenced all these other films, but I want to talk a little bit about what films Wes Craven was seeing at that time. Obviously, we see so much of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in there, but those are coming out at the same time, relatively speaking, right?
Yeah, I mean, Hills Have Eyes is absolutely obviously influenced. He stole the production designer and he knew what he wanted. And also, I think it helps that I think it was part of why he felt he could get away with the abrupt ending too. I didn't mention that, but Texas Chainsaw obviously has one of the most iconic endings of any movie. And I felt like he thought it would be better. He could pull it off because of what they did. So, I mean, absolutely, Tobe Hooper. Huge thing for Craven on that particular movie. Last House on the Left came out before, though, and you can tell because Last House on the Left is very different. It does have a similar sort of crude 16 mil kind of thing about it, but it's just not even close to being. There's no scene you would even compare, I think, you know, other than maybe the elongated unbearable sound design, maybe like the screaming on it and stuff like that. Because I think about how much she's running through that forest for like 20 minutes just screaming. It's the only thing I can think of.
I do see, just on the wiki, that John Ford's The Grapes of Wrath was a big influence, but I haven't seen that. I'm assuming that would be more like location and setting.
Yeah, environmentally, right? The vastness of this desert environment, and just, I mean, you can think of all sorts. I mean, throughout film history, again, the plains of America being barren wasteland compared to the city, and what that kind of says about the society that chose to settle there.
Like, I mean, all the elemental landscape stuff and the idea where the title comes from, the idea that the hills are watching you and they're this imposing thing you're looking up at. Like, that's straight up the history of American Westerns.
Absolutely.
You can find all that stuff in there, right? So the funny thing about trying to trace Craven though back is that Craven didn't want to be a horror filmmaker. He fell into it, and he was he was naturally gifted at it.
Yep.
But if you follow the rest of his career, he spent a lot of his career trying to get out of it, and he wished that he could have been another filmmaker. And I've went deep enough that I've watched like his passion project movie that he did, which is unfortunately not very good. I wish it was better. The Music from the Heart. Do you know that one?
No,
It's Meryl Streep like teaching music to like inner city kids. Like that was he got that made off of agreeing to do, I think it was Scream 2, because Scream was a huge hit. And they immediately called him and they said, please sign on for more. And he said, I will only sign on for Scream 2 if you green light Music from the Heart, essentially. So, and because he was riding high, he was at the top of his power in the studio, and it was what he wanted to do. And unfortunately, it's not that good. But I feel for him. I can see what he wanted. But even if you watch any long form interviews that he did, like on TV and stuff, he always kind of talked about how he fell into it and he got pigeonholed into it, and he likes the movies he made. But he definitely was like, I would have had a more diverse career if I could have had one.
Yeah. And well, Scream specifically is a satire about the genre itself. And then to be stuck making a second one, how many of those did he make?
He made 4.
Okay, so he made 4 of them.
And they're all good, by the way.
We're on to like 7 now, right?
Yeah.
So it's become like a parody of itself, the fact that this is a franchise and with sequels.
Well, and it was originally genius to bring him even in for that in the first place, because the whole idea was that we were honoring a genre that you were hugely impactful on with Nightmare on Elm Street, of course. And I mean, even the Billy Loomis in the first Scream kind of even has a little bit of a Johnny Depp thing going on, the Skeet Ulrich character.
Totally.
But when we covered Scream, the thing that we were really hung up on was the fact that someone came up with the idea to, do this remix, to make this version of this movie where the characters have seen these movies before, where there's something weird about how inevitable it is that they kind of know how this movie is supposed to go and it's going to happen to them anyway. And I don't think the movie works at all without having the real deal behind the camera. Being like Craven came from, he didn't direct it with irony. Like the script is ironic, and Williamson is a huge ironic, but Craven was not. And you hear any interview about Craven was kind of like, I kind of feel bad for these kids, because like these kids are put in this feedback loop that I helped start, and the blade's coming for their gut anyway. They can't stop it. And him directing that movie as if it was just a straightforward normal slasher that he would have done anyway. At that point, adopting all the steady cam maneuvering that he had become so good at around that time, and the suspense mechanics of it. Like, it's an incredible film. And obviously there's playful moments, like the diegetic use of the Halloween score during the meta home set piece that movie ends on. But no, the key to that movie is that Craven never looked down at being like, I'm making fun of this genre, or I'm doing a satire. These are real people. These are real killers. This is going to be a horrific thing. And I think it's why Scream has had the power that it has. And I do feel like we've kind of gotten away from it a little bit, which is why I got to say I'm a little concerned that Kevin Williamson is the only one directing a number 7. I think that the push and pull between those two guys is what made that, franchise what it was.
Totally. Yeah, I 100% agree. It's just like he has this, he does have a humor to him. I even think like he probably has a good time with how the cannibals are written in Hills Have Eyes. Like, there's obviously like a depravity to them, and there's obviously a violence and everything, but the jokes that he's making about like eating the baby and the killing the family and
my God,
whatever
please
it
watch
is.
Shocker. If anyone listening to this has not seen Shocker and wants Craven being like doing, I honestly think a little bit more like making fun of some of the stuff that he did. Like Shocker is like, I'm doing an off-brand Elm Street, and I think he didn't like the direction the Elm Street movies were going in, so he was like, I'm gonna go, this is the direction I would have probably taken them in. And that movie, the fact that it has just like, because he had the most freedom he ever got outside of, I think, the drama that he did on Shocker. And it was partially because he used that fucking, who's on the soundtrack? What metal band is on the soundtrack? Is it?
I'm trying to remember now.
Can't remember. There's a couple guys in there
on the Shocker soundtrack.
On the Shocker soundtrack, yeah, they literally put like a studio produced, like, it was their note. It was like, please make something that's kind of Elm Street-esque. but we need to sell a soundtrack for your movie. And so, and it reminds me of when fucking Argento did, what was the metal?
Was it Iron Maiden?
I think
Didn't
it was,
they do, like,
he used Iron Maiden music in Phenomena.
Yes, love it.
He has Argento himself has a history of working with prog rock bands like Goblin.
Exactly.
Oh,
Goblin
yeah.
soundtrack in Suspiria is like,
Oh my
I would
God, yes.
listen to that on its own because it's a wonderful piece of prog and like,
of course.
Yeah, just a great album. I mean, that feels like a concert, that movie sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the one where Shocker has extended sequences of just like rock music playing over like what is like really over the top elms, like a serial killer who's electricity like body swapping and going after his own kid, and like
I have a list here. The Dudes of Wrath.
Yes.
Iggy Pop, Megadeth, Bonfire.
Megadeth, I think was who it was. But and if you look up the Dudes of Wrath, that is like a super band made up of like members of like various rock bands.
Gotcha. So I'm a total. I gotta be honest. I'm a total Wes Craven Philistine because I'd only seen Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, and now Hills Have Eyes.
Okay. Well, we're recommending Shocker. We're saying when you leave today, put on Shocker. you want to see a serial killing dad using electricity to like go through TVs, and it even goes to an extended sequence where he's literally channel hopping. His serial killing dad is chasing him through an old Western, an old war movie, all this kind of, and again, the dreams and media and violence all hitting at the same time. And it's definitely the one where he was the most ridiculous and satirical deliberately.
Yeah, and I would also recommend Red Eye if you haven't seen that one with Rachel
McAdams.
I'm going
to Cillian Murphy's.
We'll
get to it.
It has like
Oppenheimer. I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy watching that one in the catalog.
Yeah, it's 85 minutes for one, which is just great, and you really just get a back and forth with Cillian and Rachel that is unbelievable. Like it's got the thriller aspect of like being in a tight spot with someone that wants to kill you and you're trying to get out of it, but because of that, there's a lot of dramatics going back and forth. Their performances are just amazing. So
we're talking about eras and of different sort of political readings too. That one is a huge post 9/11 like anxiety. Like here's another thing that feels unsafe. Like the literal cabin of this plane feels unsafe, and the fact that he also connects it to he gives Rachel McAdams' character a sort of recovering from an assault, I think. And making the Cillian Murphy character a kind of like MRA like kind of guy, making him straight up like I'm going to abuse you and take control of you and do this, and having her kind of fight her way back and merging these two different anxieties together, a very personal sense of lack of safety, and then also using the plane and it's literally a terrorist plot.
And there's that brilliant aspect of like the him kind of taking control and people not knowing it, because it's like, he's got the threat of like, I'll kill your father if you tell anybody. So she has to fake it the entire time of being like totally okay. And
being in a woman's position of having to like put on a straight face and be like, everything's okay while she's in the process of being abused. Right.
Yeah. But Craven, honestly, even though he ended up only doing horror,
right? Like in the 2000s, he didn't make a movie without thinking through it that way, which was always cool.
Yeah, I feel like all his films have something a little deeper than just the fun genre stuff that you are going to enjoy because he's such a great filmmaker.
Yeah. But then you also have a hotel getting bazookaed in that movie and stuff like you also get the fun.
Sure. Well, you got to entertain people, right? At some point in your film.
Hell yeah.
And Cillian having to spend the whole third act of the movie with like a what is it? It's like a pencil in his throat or something like that. It's
because she stabbed. It's great
him to shut him up, and he spends the whole third act as like Jamie, you might remember, is his name Jack Ripner?
It's something like that. Yeah, it's a classic killer name.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's up now too.
Jackson Ripner. Yeah.
Jackson Ripner.
That's great stuff. Great stuff. And that's the thing too. Like, I guess this was more Williamson with Scream, but like he had those names where he was calling him like what was it, like something Wes Carpenter, like mixing John Carpenter and Wes Craven together. Like he definitely has fun with that kind of stuff. I don't know if it's always up to him, but he seems to get scripts that kind of have that.
I love that these guys are always in conversation with one another. I feel like there's a close-knit community sort of, again, like this is the way my brain works. I'm always like wondering what influenced what, and the
Yeah.
timeline of film, wondering if they had seen those movies, is this
course.
really what I mean? Because these guys are film lovers, like most of them. Some of them are more, wary of the film industry, right?
Oh,
And
sure.
maybe downtrodden about it. But
Mhm.
others really just love the medium and want to have this like conversation with other filmmakers.
Well, there's those guys who got into it after the war as like a technical skill and an awesome job. And then there was the guys who grew up watching movies, right?
Yeah.
That's where you get the movie brat era. You get those guys who were like the first generation of Hollywood directors who like went to film school.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
studied the masters.
Right.
It is interesting to think like back. It's like don't get me wrong, they're all artists in their own way. It's just that there probably was that mentality eventually that was like it feels more like a free form art rather than just a structured studio job. It just feels like that. Like you said, we've talked about so many directors that really just did the work. It's like you watch them in interviews after, like John Ford, for instance, one of the best directors of all time. When you listen to him talk, he's just kind of like, yeah, I set up the shot the way it needs to be, and I got the job done. And then you watch the movies, and you're like, how is this not the most
Yeah, there's no
passionate, artistic man
Yeah.
behind the camera right now? It's really
Sure.
strange.
There's some directors that fall into like the spirituality of filmmaking, with you capturing a moment or like getting really deep into it. That's so funny. John Ford just being like, I don't know, it looked cool.
Yeah, look up any interview of Peter Bogdanovich trying to talk to John Ford. They are so incredibly funny because Peter Bogdanovich is one of these film nerds. He was the guy who obviously made Target, which is one of the most meta, incredible, incredible movie. One of our favorites we've ever watched on the show.
Yeah,
so prescient now,
and someone who clearly thinks through movies. And speaking again of political anxieties and the idea
100%.
of sort of mass shooters in America, and the fact that incorporating that in with the idea of Boris Karloff as like, an aging horror movie star, when people used to get scared of a guy in a spooky castle wearing makeup. And now he's like, that's not what scares people at the drive-in anymore. Now it's guys who will show up.
It's murder.
Shooting people with guns. And like, that's something deeply on that movie's mind, because Peter Bogdanovich is that kind of film thinker when it comes to that, and really appreciates all the old stuff. Every interview where he sits down with John Ford, and he's just like, so, when you were framing this shot for like the Searchers, and and you really feel the power of him and what he symbolizes in America. And he's like, I don't know. Okay. He's like, do you think about like it that way? He's like, not really.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, he's just so cold and matter.
At least depend.
Yeah, there's like this. I feel like there's like a very practical mindset that some directors have that you just wouldn't know watching their films, and that's always, I don't know, that's always kind of mixed me up a little bit.
Why we love so much people like Peckinpah and Don Siegel as well, like these guys who they obviously very clearly were insanely naturally gifted and were doing such sophisticated things with their cameras, but whether they could actually articulate that themselves, or whether because they just didn't think of their own films in that way.
That's the thing. I think that's like them having, I'm sure they had like some self-awareness, of course, but like them having less of like that kind of, maybe their reputation, or this like what kind of film they're trying to make. It feels like they let go of that, and they were just like, I'm gonna get the right framing that I need to make this point and move forward. And it's not so, I don't know, the fact that you want it to almost be more spiritual, and when you find out that it isn't, it's, I don't know, there's something. It's
your heroes.
Yeah, in a way, it's like I guess I have more of a romantic sense of what filmmaking would be like,
100%.
because when you watch them, it's just like that sweeping feeling you get, and you almost think that that's got to be part of the creation. And then every interview you see, or you talk to the people that are behind the scenes, it really is just a job, and they're just trying to get it done. And sometimes they find lightning in a bottle, and then other times they don't. But
Well, they were just so good at wordlessly communicating what it is that they were actually feeling, and that when you tried to sit them down to get them to coherently speak about it, they were like, I don't really want to talk about that. But
yeah, it's like Lynch, right? Where he's just like, I made the movie. Now let it talk. Like, I don't want to. I don't want to explain everything.
All the times we've done Peckinpah, when we were talking about like Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, and we were like, this is the most accurate movie I imagine of like a guy who grew up like a ranch hand, saw some awful things in the war, and then tried to drink himself to death in Mexico. That's what that movie feels like. And he would never be like, that was, it's in there. It's baked into every shot choice that he made. And,
Well, that goes back to one of the first things we were talking about here regarding authorism or authorship, right? Once the film is out there, it's up to us to talk about how it makes us feel, and not. It's great, like you said, if there's a lot of information, Jamie, if there's a lot of information about these directors that you can read up on. And
feel free to look up Craven interviews after the fact for anyone, because Craven was the opposite. He did intellectually think all this through.
Yeah.
And he was very open about,
true.
So Peckinpah, Fulci, these are
okay. Are we getting? Is it Mount Rushmore time? Is it who are the guys?
These are now intertwined with Sleazoids in my mind. I will always think.
Okay. Hey, we'll take that. Those are names that we would love to find.
No, but absolutely, because your podcast and your work, guys, introduced me to these filmmakers. Absolutely.
Oh, awesome.
Especially Fulci. The Beyond is just something that I would have otherwise never given its moment, and now I'm obsessed with all of the sort of films that you guys talk about, right? But I think it's also, I know it's on your shirt, but and now on your bonus feed poster, but just literally inseparable, I think, to the ideology of what makes a movie fit in your guys' scope. You know what I mean? But another guy that definitely does, and I think is maybe one of his films is a reaction to, maybe a negative reaction to genre films, to horror as a genre specifically, and it's Brian De Palma and Blowout, and this scene where he's effectively mocking Carpenter while also giving him his flowers, right? It's saying like, these guys are making these films and they're not thinking about the beauty of this artwork, but like, that's such an unfair assessment of, I think, how a lot of these guys operate, like Wes Craven, like like Hooper, like, I don't know. Another guy.
De Palma is another guy worth looking up for the same reasons as Craven. Very smart guy, very open to talking about his movies. Noah Baumbach obviously did that documentary on him where he sits down and just walks you through his whole career, called De Palma. Right. Was, when I hadn't like 100% at his filmography, that was very helpful for me for finding the ones that I should check that out. I didn't know he made that one and all that kind of stuff. But he was another example of someone, and we've talked about this a lot about De Palma, because I think actually De Palma is the most covered director on the show.
Nice.
Probably, yeah.
I think he is. I think he has that. Yeah. It's either him or Cronenberg. They're like 1 and 2. And De Palma was another guy who he wanted to be more like a Spielberg. He wanted to be like a George Lucas. Like he thought, he hung out with those guys. Those guys sometimes help produce movies. They swap scripts. Like there's De Niro was in Taxi Driver because of Brian De Palma, because he did those student films with him. Like those guys did all kinds of work together, and De Palma was always a little disappointed that he just never had like the pop hit. And I think he got closest with things like The Untouchables or like Mission Impossible, arguably, even though he was very quickly taken off of that franchise because Tom Cruise didn't particularly enjoy that experience. And they had dueling writers. It was like Robert Towne and David Koepp in different hotel rooms writing different scripts for each guy.
Oh wow!
And the studio was trying to who could get the pages in fast enough kind of deal. So they didn't have a great time working on that. But that was it, is De Palma had so much trouble making those movies, and he was not seen as a guy like that. So he just kept reverting into his instincts and what he knew, even though he was like the guy who took the visual grammar of pop entertainment like Hitchcock more seriously than anybody else in his era. He could never quite achieve that status that he wanted, and that's why you have a movie like Spielberg doesn't have a body double.
No, right?
No one has a body double. It's just Brian De Palma. But like that is the movie he made where he went, this is what you guys think I am.
Mm.
And he will tell you that he was like, every movie I got, Dressed to Kill, it got reviewed like it was just straight absolute trash. I hadn't thought through the ideas. I just put a bunch of mock Hitchcock, photography, and that was what people thought of me. So Body Double was I'm gonna make the porno absolute bottom of the barrel trash everyone thinks I make, and that movie is still one of the most beautiful looking, and it moves, and my God. So yeah, no, De Palma's one of our guys, absolutely.
Yeah.
It does feel like there are just directors that can't like move past their instincts, and I think that's a good thing, honestly. I understand a director also is just, they're a human being that has certain probably career goals that they want to do, and if De Palma wanted the Spielberg blockbuster, I do understand that. But it's just when you watch his movies, even the more mainstream ones or whatever you want to call them, like The Untouchables or Mission Impossible, there is an edge that no one else would be able to give that kind of story and film. And it just feels like, I don't know. When I hear that, like, same with Craven, I understand that he wanted to do more dramas and stuff. It's just, I don't know, when you have something that you're so locked into and so good at and so natural at, I find it strange that people fight against it. But I could also, I mean, I get it. You don't want to be completely stuck. It's like an actor getting typecast or something like that. You know, you want to be able to explore different,
or a musician getting stuck in a genre. I think that's another thing that was one of the things I was trying to get to you with that question about genre labels and maybe feeling pigeon-held into certain structures in song structures and vocal styles and that sort of thing. I think that happens all the time, especially with metal and purists and elitism that happens in this genre.
Yeah, there is like when you're writing something, and it's probably related to film too. It's you want to do what's completely authentic to you, and then every once in a while, though, your brain will kind of go like, well, will other people like that? Right. and it's up to you, I think, to
I have someone interested in buying this, particular thing from me, or
yeah, exactly. It's like that's been successful before, so why wouldn't I just rinse and repeat, or even repeat with something new? And I think you get it in the back of your head, so I can understand maybe like it's like, directors are we look at them as these legends, at least I do, because I mean they're making my favorite pieces of art, but obviously they're just human beings with the same kind of goals and flaws, and failures and whatever. And so it's I think it's a matter of, I guess, what you're going for when you're writing. It's like, is this song or movie or whatever it is supposed to be like just this authentic inner kind of self-discovery, or are you also trying to make something that's going to hook somebody when the chorus comes or whatever? Maybe you can make the rest of your song kind of experimental, but you want something that gets somebody that wouldn't normally listen to it to listen to it. There is definitely a constant struggle with that. But it's just, I don't know for me, I can see it obviously, because I'm like, I just want to make what I want to make.
But we just see the work.
Yeah.
When we're talking about filmmakers specifically, right?
Yeah. And so when you have the filmmakers complain about when they're pigeonholed, I am kind of like, yeah, but you're so good at it though. So but I get it.
Backed into a corner like that, like, man,
like someone like Craven, right? Especially.
Yeah.
But then you watch the movies and you're like, dude, you're just so good. I don't know what to do.
Any maybe final thoughts on the time and distance between now and the first time you saw The Hills Have Eyes for your pod, or anything that we might have missed that before we wrap up this film?
I mean, for me, when I rewatched it, it was really nice to just go back to it, kind of remember the hangups, what I would think are probably really stupid now hangups of what I thought the initial time I watched it, when I was still getting into these kind of movies. I think when I was rewatching, I just was like, oh, I am solidified in loving this film for one, and then just loving this type of filmmaking and this specific genre and everything. It's just, this show's only made me respect these films more and love that I get to talk about them. I mean, it's pretty wild that this is what I get to do for a living. I honestly still wake up every day and kind of like, it's gonna end one day, right? Like something's gonna just pull the rug out from under me and be like, you don't get to talk about movies for money anymore. It's
well, I think if you
it just feels like such a lucky thing.
That That might do it.
We're gonna
Yeah.
have to workshop this.
Or if you don't try it fast enough, then the rug will be pulled out from under you.
Yeah, someone's gonna do it.
Yeah.
We need to see the
Yeah.
grocery store. Anyways, sorry.
I felt what's funny is rewatching it. It felt there was a little bit of a rhyming to doing it because I was going back and I knew I was doing it to go back and try to listen to some of the episode as well. And I probably felt like how
Brave soul.
Craven felt, where he's just like, this was me when I had like no resources and I had to just like steal stuff from the set of Texas Chainsaw Massacre to even get a movie made. And like, and I felt listening back to our show and I was sitting there going just like, man, they sound like shit. They we had the natural rhythm of being able to talk to each other. It's maybe the only positive thing I could say is that
that's probably what kept people at least watching initially or listening in some way, shape, or form is that we at least were good at conversing.
I loved hearing the cat interrupt you at one point, like just barrel into you. Which was great. The
sirens, we used to have sirens.
I felt a little nostalgia watching it just because of what it was connected to, but it was funny while watching it. I found myself thinking of like sitting at a table with Jamie with a microphone just in front of us, being like how much our setup has changed, how much what we've done has changed, and my feelings on the movie were the thing that I was like, damn, I don't think I feel honestly any different than I did. I went through my old take and I was like, damn, most of my, like I looked at my notes and I was like, damn, okay, well I'm the same person. My notes my notes were fairly similar, just maybe a little bit more detailed, but no, otherwise I was like, it was nice to get a refresher. It was nice to go back to Craven, especially that era of Craven, because it is not the one that I tend to rewatch the most. It's not my favorite. I do like those movies and I they're hugely impactful and influential, and I mean there's reasons that they've been remade multiple times and
why we're still talking about them today, right?
Exactly. And there's a reason it was our first episode, and there's there is a power and a weight to those movies, and they're so important in his career. But yeah, personally, it's just not the one that I tend to go back to. Like when I was rewatching this year, my wife and I did Nightmare on Elm Street, because it's the most rewatchable one for me. It is while still having those things that I like about Craven, having these children under duress and the parents causing all this suffering for them, and how entering the more sort of like prettier version of like surrealist grisliness that he kind of entered, rather than the really ugly lo-fi stuff. But I love both, and I love that this guy was capable of doing both. And I like to think that at some point we did a lo-fi podcast. We try to keep it a little bit like that, just because it was part of the charm. But at some point, I mean, I like to assume we figured out how to work the podcast equivalent to figuring out how to work a Steadicam.
Yeah, sure.
And how to hire a department. I feel like we've done that over 7 years.
I think we've cleaned it up enough that it's like it's presentable for people that might not necessarily always be in the underground of things, but at the same time, it's I think we still stay true to what we were trying to do initially, and we've never censored ourselves or anything like that, which I think is definitely part of the show, given given the subject matter we're talking about every week. It gets pretty wild.
There's a couple times every once in a while we're like, have we talked about too many big movies in a row? We need to go back to our roots, and we put something just absolutely disgusting in our eyeball. It's something we think about for sure.
Yeah, definitely
balancing art house and trash.
Right.
Well, and that's also we realized it, and I think we've been making up for it for the past maybe like 2 or 3 years, maybe. But like we spent a long time like avoiding the big ones because we went, everyone's talked about.
Oh, sure.
Like
that's intimidating.
We talked about Jaws this year.
Yeah.
And it was like, how are we like 7 years into a genre and exploitation movie podcast without talking about like one of the biggest genre movies of the 1970s, one of those influential genre movies. Like we talked about like 10 Jaws knockoffs probably before we talked about Jaws, right? And for us, it was just daunting and being like, is that what people want from us? And it turned out it was what people, because every once in a while when the patrons get to vote, we let them vote like once every 2 months for an episode. And very frequently they're like, it's time. You guys need to talk about this movie, this one,
and there's also the
anxiety about saying something new, right, about the film.
So I was just gonna say that it's like when you take on a big blockbuster, especially something so prolific like Jaws or Star Wars or something,
there's so many documentaries and special features and interviews, and you're like, what are we gonna say that you guys haven't heard before?
So I think what like my approach to those things is just kind of give my just really make it completely subjective from my point of view, and try not to dive into the stuff of like the countless hours of documentation of like how each shot was set
But
up,
also
or
be
how
informed enough that no one yells at you.
For missing.
yeah,
out.
exactly. You have to kind of mix it. You gotta sprinkle in a couple trivia stuff, and then the rest of it can just be your like subjective experience.
You have
But
to have the trivia stuff in there just so that it naturally does maybe come out at some point, and that so everyone who does know it doesn't go, hey, they missed that.
Okay, but the quintessential element that brings people back to the show, I think, as somebody who listens to you guys' show all the time, is something that you find in the very first episode of the pod, which I know it's very difficult to listen to, but the quintessential element of two guys who are obviously good friends and shooting the shit is still there today. And you could have a podcast where people sit down and listen to that style of conversation, even though Jaws has been done 1,000 times. How could you do Star Wars again? Well, actually, it's two guys talking about it who have just such great energy and chemistry, and that's kind of what brings people back. And I think that like maybe can alleviate some of your anxiety, just as somebody who is a good fan of yours and a fan of what you guys are doing. I mean, it's
really nice to hear for sure. And I will say some of it was alleviated too when one of our good friends who's come on the show a couple times, Steve Carlson, he has been a patron since day one. He inspires us so much in terms of someone who, like, on Letterboxd, no matter if he gets 0 likes or whatever, he is watching so much stuff that I would just never think to watch. He looks for it. We use him as a guiding light sometimes when we're like, we want to talk about something really, really underseen this week. He has been a longtime listener of the show as well as a guest of the show, and he once told us that he was basically like, I am someone who is, I think, objectively, especially when we started the show, way more knowledgeable and has seen way more of this stuff and could probably be a third mic and give us way more information than we currently have. And he told us that he just likes listening to it because it was like us reacting to seeing something for the first time. And he thought that he just was like, it's like when you recommend a movie to a buddy and then you listen to him talk about it. He was like, that was how he kind of viewed it, even when we didn't know everything about what we were talking about, especially early on. And so that was nice to hear. And it was definitely something that kind of kept us going, especially when we early committed to it. Cause I don't know, Jamie, when did we even make any money? 3 years? It was like, maybe?
Like before that, it was like a couple years of making, like we'd make $20 each a month and we'd be like, sweet, beer money for one weekend or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then it was probably a few years before it was starting to help us with, groceries or rent or something like that. Which was like surreal. And it still is, honestly. Every day that I see, the support we have, I am honestly like unbelievably grateful and just feel like the luckiest dude in the world. And I will say too, being friends with Josh does make the conversation easier. And there's this thing, and maybe some people don't love it, or they would prefer us to be a little bit more combative or something like that, just to make it a little bit, have some friction. But because me and Josh do tend to, and it's honestly not like it's not like contrived or anything. It just is what it is.
Yeah, we actually, this is a behind the scenes. We don't, if we're watching something for like the week, we deliberately don't talk to each other about anything regarding the movie. Like if we can get fresh thoughts of, like, sometimes Jamie won't have even logged the movie we're talking about for the week, so I don't even know what his rating is. And I'm going to the movie not knowing anything that he has to think about it. It
just so happens that I think that's also why we started talking to each other about movies. It's like, even if we have these little disagreements about something in the film, it's like overall
we found a way to be like, I understood how you came to that, but I feel a little bit differently about it. We're agreeable Canadian boys.
We're just too polite, damn it. And so I don't know. Every once in a while we'll get into a little bit of a back and forth, but again, it's always in this like, but I understand where you're coming from kind of thing. So I get, if people find that to be like, I don't know, less interesting, I guess I could understand it. But I think it's more just about, I would hate to wake up every Wednesday, Thursday, whatever we're doing, and feel like I'm about to get into a debate with Josh about movies. It would that's exhausting. So I was like, I am glad that we actually see eye to eye on a lot of things.
That's all of film Twitter feels like. That's what all of discourse in any capacity ever feels like. This is
like, do we need more of that?
No, I don't know. Like talking politics online, it's just onslaught of bots and sludge online, slop. AI.
Yeah.
It's a good escape to just hear two people. Look, not just people who agree, but like again, the conversation bouncing. That's what I think of. Not I don't automatically think of you guys just agreeing with each other. That's not the thing that
Totally.
brings me back, right? And there's a level of
Yeah.
comfort, obviously, with people who are good friends and chat. That's great, but
Well,
it's-
and found each other through a similar sensibility, I think.
Yeah.
Especially.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like I have learned a lot from Josh and reading his reviews and how he interprets movies. And so there's probably some stuff that the way that I read film might have rubbed up on me, but I don't think it's ever gotten to a point where, it feels like I'm just another half of Josh's brain or anything like that. I feel like there's still
The
two
best test is
differentiating
always going to
voices.
TIFF, because
Oh, sure.
we both go into the same movie. We watch so many of the same movies. We watch 4 in a day. Our brains are just being hammered by movies.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Oh my God.
we come out of it, and there are many times where we just, there is a star difference, and we don't get mad about each other or anything like that. But it is one of those things where every once in a while, like when you have the immediate impression and not like I've had time to actually go and research and think about this and actually really formulate my thoughts, and then there's two coherently formulated things, blending into each other. That's what the show is when we're at TIFF, and it is like we came out of that and I was like, I fucking thought that stunk.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
and there are multiple times where it happened this year. So it's
Nice.
it's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. And I am enjoying it. But yeah, we've always had this kind of same view of how to read a film, I think.
Of
And that's
course, I
probably why
invite
we
everyone
lie
to go
up.
listen to episode 1 and see that things aren't actually like time is a flat circle. I don't think things have.
We just re-recorded many of the same thoughts, I think, today.
You guys,
Yeah.
Where we
Little
said some of
preview
the same
today.
things.
Absolutely. maybe
Hopefully
maybe
slightly more
in
articulate than I
cadence.
did in the
Yes.
first year.
For sure. I'll give you that, but with the same cadence. And I thought it was great. That's a beautiful thing that just happened. And you guys coming in being like, no, actually, I felt very much the same way about this.
Yeah,
film
I totally
is
thought I was
so
going to
cool.
feel differently.
Yeah,
I thought
that's
I was
so
good.
cool.
I was like, no, I thought on
Yeah, I love
zero
it even
thoughts,
more.
The vibe of our thoughts on the movie was pretty much the same.
On a personal anecdote, I am horrible at rewatching. I have a 1,500 film watch list. Like I need.
We're probably comparable on that.
I'm obsessed. I read more about films that I should watch than I actually watch them. I'm just constantly add to watch list, add to watch list. And
Totally.
I have limited time in the day to watch a new film. I just feel like I have to watch something new. And being like,
that's fair.
I don't give myself enough time to rewatch something, and especially because I'm not coming into this with a lifetime of film watching and a classical education in a film school. I'm just like self-discovery, reading other critics, watching you guys, that sort of thing is my schooling, right?
No, it's the best, man. Same thing when I was getting into writing film criticism very early on before we had a podcast. I just read people who I thought were smarter than me.
Yep.
And even if I didn't agree with, frequently I didn't agree with them.
No, yeah.
But they helped give you the vocabulary on how to say what you wanted to say.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing for me, is that some of the best writers on film that I've ever read, and I still read, are people who, we bring up Pauline Kael on the show all the time. That's someone I disagree with vehemently all of the time. But she has a great way of prose and of describing and words that she uses to convey how it is that she felt about the movie. And that was what I appreciated most in a critic. And it was what, I didn't learn how to be a critic at film school. I learned it by reading people who I thought were incredibly smart and incredibly articulate, and trying to become that myself, but conveying my own thoughts and my own feelings about it, and frequently reading people and being like so disagreeing with them that I came to my conclusion. I'm like, they actually helped me get to my point because they were wrong.
It's an amazing feeling.
Sure, yeah. And you are preaching to the choir when it comes to the new movies rather than rewatching, because I feel the same way, being someone that didn't go to film school. There are still films that I haven't watched that are those like major blindsides that if you went to film school would be in the first semester that you watched
I'll
them.
ask you about that.
So, yeah, for sure. I'll just go through my watch list and I'll tell you all the things I've missed. But it does feel that way, where I have to I should watch something new, even if it's this year, so that it goes to the end of the year list, or it's
Yeah.
for a classic that I've missed. I do feel kind of guilty sometimes rewatching films, even if I love them, because it's not like it feels like a waste of time. You always get something new, I think, from watching a film again.
Yes.
But it's like I feel like I have so much to catch up on, I guess.
Unless
And
it's
it's like
multi-life.
I'm wasting my time if I'm not watching Ran. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or
Well,
or
okay, so here's the
Godfather
thing.
or whatever.
The big revelation for me was I forced myself for 3 weeks this year to do rewatches only, and I got something new
Yeah.
out of every single film I rewatched.
great.
So that was
It's a
me
great
being like,
experience.
okay, I clearly have to do this more often because
Yeah, I was doing that too because I was like, there's all these films. Even speaking on the show, there's a bunch of films where
We've been
I
both
get
doing a little bit
really
of that, and
Yeah.
like going through stuff we covered early on that maybe we didn't write reviews for. I didn't remember my thoughts about that much, and we've been going through and doing like I did Razorback. I think last year because we did
That's
it, like,
awesome.
one of the first like 5 episodes of the show, just like Australian sort of like eco horror, giant boar just fucking ripping through, and it's I forget his name. The guy who directed Highlander is the guy
right,
who directed that. It's so stylishly made, and yeah, I was like, man, it was refreshing to be like, I hardly remembered the movie because partially what happens to us with the show is we talk about it and then it is poof, it is disappeared.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to have a record of our most in detailed thoughts that we had at the moment when we were the most informed about a movie. So it's great to sometimes be like, read our own transcriptions and be like, what did I think about that? It's useful, but as a result, also sometimes the movies are just gone right away, and I'm like, I do need to go back and actually
but
check that out.
500
Yeah.
films a year is tough.
The amount of times that
Tough on the
Josh has been
psyche.
like, have you seen this? And I'm like, I don't think I have, because we hadn't done it in like 6 years or whatever it
Sure.
was. And I'm like, oh wait, of course, I
You look
love
at
that
Letterboxd.
movie actually.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I've done that 1,000 times. So it's just like you do get a little jumbled, I would say. But the one thing, like I have this dumb rating that we've TM'd, the Jamie 4
Jamie
rating,
4.
which is essentially
inquire about the
it
Jamie
essentially means that it's like something that I feel is probably going to get to masterpiece status for me, but I
On a
need that.
rewatch.
I need that gut feeling. I don't know about you, but like fours and fives are just different for me in the sense that really a 5 isn't like it's not a perfect film. I don't even know if that exists, but it's like it's
Face off.
perfect for me, and it just touches my soul in a way that I know no other piece of art will do it. And so there's a ton of those that I did this year that I went back and said, oh, that's what I rated it on the show, and kind of went back, and there were a ton of that I
I was
fived
so
and
pleased
just
to see Jamie rewatch Miami Vice recently and upgrade it to the 5.
Hell yeah.
yes, absolutely. That was one. That was a major
That was a
one.
long
and that
time
was
coming. That was one of our
You know
earliest
what's-
conversations at the grocery store. Was him saying people don't really seem to like that movie all that much. Me being like, no, it's the best movie ever.
Yeah, that was Josh, because Josh, I just had a sour taste in my mouth because I was still listening to all the like those general reviews that would happen when a movie was getting shit on. The same thing happened with with Black Hat. And Josh just invited me over, I think, one day, and we watched Miami Vice, and I was like, this is like, it's very different, like the digital camera work and everything, but I was like, I was just blown away that anyone would hate the movie. And it kind of opened my world a little bit. And then, the show started.
And then we did the show.
We're here.
Still
But
gave it the Jamie 4 on the show, I'm pretty sure.
I did.
But then last
yeah,
week,
it's
he rewatched it and he was like, it took 3 or 4 watches, but it got there.
that's
so
so cool.
that's how he does it.
yeah. For me, it's like I think with something that I'm gonna consider, I always don't like I like doing the lower rating first, because then it gives room for me to go back to it and maybe
See, I have no qualms.
Bring
with
it
that.
up.
If I give something a 5
Yeah.
and then go back and like drop it down, I'm like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Happens.
It's a good
I
feeling,
almost,
right?
I almost feel bad, like I was like wrong. I like the thought of me expanding what I like, rather than me going, oh, I don't like what I used to love. That makes me sad.
I don't like getting fixated on the number. In fact,
Oh, I agree.
my bio on
agree.
Letterboxd says star ratings don't mean anything, but I can't stop doing them now. I'm in too deep, basically.
Yeah,
Like,
I like it. See, for me, I totally agree with you. I think when people say these things like, it's a 5, it's a 4, it's a 3, some people take it too
we came up
seriously.
with the idea of calling it the reductive rating round when we came up with it in
Right.
the jokes. We were like, the conversation should mean more than this, but if you need a number, here's the number.
yeah. That's how I
And I
feel
like-
about it.
My view is like the way I usually use it is just, it's like a categorical thing where you can understand very quickly how I feel about a film, and then we can get
Sure.
into the nuance of it. You know what I mean?
That's totally
I think
fair.
that's why it's useful. I hate when I see, and whoever does this, no offense, do your thing, live your life. But if you're on Letterboxd and you're doing the like 67 out of 100 because like that stuff gets I'm like, I don't,
granular,
my brain
right?
would melt. It would
it's
spend me
granular.
way too much time rating a thing for it to be that specific and that kind of like mathematical or whatever. So yeah, that I don't understand that at all. But
my good friend Owen, shout out Owen, another listener of yours,
shout out Owen,
who
Yeah, we love you, Owen.
I mean, got me into film effectively in our first year of university, sitting down and watching Miami Blues together and
Cool.
The Edge and all of these films. He does a binary heart, no heart system, which I know other people do too. But it's hard for a film not to get a heart, which is always like the big moment of like, how bad was this piece of shit that you didn't even give it a heart? That's very funny.
True.
Okay.
That is a statement. Yeah.
For him, it's a statement because it's like a 90%
right
rating, and then all of a sudden there's like a no heart, and I'm like, wow, this must have stung.
No heart, no soul.
I do love analyzing other people's rating systems and then trying to like recalculate them into my own rating system. I do that all the time with friends because I'm like, well, he gave that a 3.5, but he's pretty hard on stuff. That's probably like at least like a 4 for me, Like
totally.
So funny. I like movies, and you'll see my curve shows that I'm like a 4 and 5 giver to everything. I was just like, here's a 4.
Oh yeah, I once looked at mine and I was like, oh, everything is like a 3 and up. Like 70% probably a 3 and up,
But also, I have a theory that it's because I read so much about films and I tend to watch things that I think I'd like.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I don't seek out.
You aren't watching movies to be bad, right? Yeah. That's what you try to avoid with the podcast. That's the sort
maybe
of thing.
Throughout the year when we're doing new releases, that's maybe the only time where we're like, I don't think I'm really gonna like The Strangers Chapter 2 by Rennie Harlan, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna see.
We love what I do. Older films, I tend to not dive into stuff that I think I'm going to dislike. I will say new releases, I do kind of like watching films I know I'm going to dislike. I don't know why. It's not the so bad it's good mentality. It's just, I think there is something to be said about watching a bad movie or watching at least something that you think is a bad movie because it does form your tastes even more. You understand yourself a little more. And trust, we have this, we call it taking out the blade, going samurai mode in the Discord when we know actively that you're probably about to put on a piece of shit. And it's like this stupid meme thing we do where it's like the discipline of taking out the blade and defending yourself against a bad movie.
Samurai, just like slightly way through a 1-star movie.
Gotcha.
About it.
Yeah, like it's like you'll never kill my spirit. 1-star film,
right? You're like beating your hand against concrete or something to make your knuckles
exactly yes, what it is. I'm building strength. Absolutely.
Yeah. Iron hand,
resilience,
iron mind. By watching movies. Okay, I have a bunch of these more rapid fire questions to just like name drop a bunch of movies and turn these into clickbait clips for Instagram and TikTok. So
I'm gonna fuck this up so bad. Let's go.
Exactly. Question. I have a couple of like individual ones. Question for Jamie first. What's your favorite hardcore breakdown from like another band that you listen to that you like?
Holy hell. You know what? I'll just say the one that popped in my head. I love the breakdown in Damien by Stray from the Path. Again, saying it's my favorite, I don't know, but it's the first one that popped in my head. But Damien by Stray from the Path. Check out that song. It's got this awesome music video moment where they do like a back and forth call and response of the guitar, and then as soon as they do this like deep kind of like a some type of dive with the guitar, the bassist just does like a front kick spin into it, and it just, I don't know, it's been ingrained in my brain ever since I've seen it. So I'll say that one for now.
Awesome. For Josh, the Grammys give out awards for best recording packaging, right? So a vinyl, they give out a Grammy for a vinyl that has the best inserts and 2-panel visuals. Even the color that the vinyl is packaged in. If you had to give an award for a physical media copy, whether it's Criterion,
bringing
whether
my
it's
other job into this,
that's right. That's exactly right.
I do have a ridiculous Blu-ray collection, and
that's
my
right.
wife
he does
is a little concerned about.
Actually, my Blu-ray collection, the only reason I even have it is because Josh will upgrade to 4Ks and then he'll give me
Oh, that's awesome.
1080p
all my
like
old
Santa
ones
Claus.
from like 10 years ago. If there's a new 4K that comes out for like, I got the Freaked one for this week, you know, I was like, I'll give Jamie the old Blu-ray of that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So if you have to give an award for inserts, booklets, special features, anything that comes to mind, a good physical media copy from like any of these producers that make these wonderful copies or remasters or anything like that.
Yeah,
I know it's a tough one, and I'll edit this obviously.
Yeah, no. One that I'll say that I was really pleased with this year was, I think it was Second Sight Overseas did a 4K of The Hitcher, which has become one of Jamie and I's favorite movies we've ever talked about on the show, with Rutger Hauer just chasing that kid down on the desert highways. It's a horror movie, sun-drenched, shot by the guy who shot like Road Warrior, I think is John Seale who shot it.
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful movie, haunting movie.
Good.
It does feel like a purgatory dream. And even in watching it in sort of like subpar conditions, we thought it was like one of the best movies we had ever seen. And so Second Sight did a massive 4K release of that. It's so big on my shelf. It was one of the few that I had to like really display out. And I haven't gone into it yet, but I think it has like the script, and I think it might even have like the book or something that it's based on. And like anytime they go full out like that, and they write these special essays and they give you, you know, lobby cards or whatever it is, I definitely appreciate the extra effort some of these companies put into the packaging, and The Hitcher was one that I was really impressed with.
Well, have you seen the interest in physical media? I feel like it's increasing. Like vinyl collecting had a big resurgence. I feel like obviously we're in an insular circle of like cinephiles, right? But outside of that, I do feel like the interest is growing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'll look at it and you'll look at the numbers all the time, and the Blu-ray numbers in the general market go down every year. It doesn't look great, but it's worth noting that that's for like Walmart. That's for like people who buy brand new movies,
and not boutiques, right?
Boutique is growing every year. These labels are popping up because people want them, because they're the, you know, freaks like us will rebuy it for the third time and give their old copy away. Like it's just what we're gonna do. And so, you know, selling these specialty ones, really, you know, hooking us in with some of the. I remember I imported from the States the Den of Thieves. They did a 2-pack in 4K, and I don't even really like steelbooks that much. They were both steelbooks, but it came in like this like safe vault together. And it was the only way to get both movies in 4K, which are ones that Jamie and I are more fans of than I think when Den of Thieves came out, that first one, it was maybe in the first year of the show, like 2018, 2019. And we were like, what is this random Gerard Butler multiplex heist film?
This divorced dad energy.
It was in our top 10 genre films of the year when it came out. And we were so fucking stoked. We were like, you know, Monster Energy Drink Heat was how I think we tried to describe it. And
I love divorced dad cinema.
4K 2-pack of a safe vault of both of those things. It's ridiculous that it exists. And yes, I will buy it and ship it from the United States.
And that's a great, by the way, a great interview you guys did with the Den of Thieves.
I forgot that we interviewed that.
Oh, thank
We've
you.
done some cool things.
That was
sure have.
Yeah, that was a really cool moment.
We had a great
I think
time.
that was really our first one or only one in the sense of just being a direct
we wanted it to be
like
really
that.
special. It was someone that we really were intrigued by their thought, and the fact also that he didn't have to like we were approached to do like a junket interview, and we were like no, we will do. He gave us like an hour. He was like, give it all to me. And I have always appreciated the fact that, you know, we had talked, because of the show, we had talked about his dad so much, because people won't know that, because the director is Christian Gudegast and his father's Eric, is it Eric Braeden? I think. And he's Victor Newman on Young and the Restless. He had a lot. He's the bad guy in like Planet of the Apes 3, and we had talked about him.
He was in the ambulance, right?
That was what we brought up, is we said, we've actually talked about your dad a lot on our show, which he was like, what? And we said, we watched the Larry Cohen movie, The Ambulance, because he's the bad guy, just like hunting Eric Roberts around town in a fucking killer ambulance. Is a fantastic movie.
It is.
And he could not believe that we had seen The Ambulance. He's like, what is the show you guys are doing that you're watching The Ambulance with my dad?
Two stalkers,
you know?
like
yeah. Your dad's awesome, by the way.
That's awesome. Okay, I've got a couple more.
Okay, let's do it.
For Jamie, obviously being a musician, like what's your favorite soundtrack? Something that you can listen to outside of. I know this is way too broad, but something
Ooh.
that you can listen to outside of watching the film, or something
For
that
sure.
a film that excites you specifically because the music is good.
There's a few. I mean, the ones that I listen to a lot, I would say, the assassination of Jesse James is one that I absolutely adore.
Best reading
Um,
soundtrack of all time, by the way.
Sweet.
It's
Yeah.
so good for just reading a book and throwing it on the
Oh,
background.
sick.
Totally. It's amazing. It's got like, it's really heavily emotional, but it's very subtle at the same time. It's really good.
Is it
Mandy.
Nick Cave and Warren Ellis, I think, did that one?
Yes.
Yeah, Cave.
Yeah, Nick Cave is incredible. And Mandy is one by is it Yo-Yo Johansson? He passed away, but I think
Yeah,
that's that was
Johan, yeah.
Yo Johansson, something like
Exactly.
that.
For which film?
Incredible.
Mandy.
For Mandy.
Oh, for Mandy.
Which
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm a big Nick Cage guy, but it's just it's the whole the look of it, the way that it's in this kind of like LSD sci-fi alternate universe eventually, and just the mix of all these different genres and kind of movie references that we've covered on the show put
Yeah.
together in this unbelievably bizarre film.
It's a bit
But
of
the
Nicholas
soundtrack,
Winding Refn in there too. The
Totally.
pace and the
Mhm.
slog, the neon vibe of
the
it.
lighting,
Yeah.
100%. And even like with Refn, kind of in a similar tone too, he uses a lot of like synths and just these like really heavy kind of digital sounds with the soundtrack, and I'm absolutely in love with it. I think it's called, my favorite track from it is, I think it's called Mandy's Love Theme. I think it's called that.
Mhm.
And it's one of the most beautifully sad themes I've ever heard. So that would be one. I also love both Blade Runner soundtracks, the sequel and the original. Man, there's a ton.
Yeah, I know,
I'm
there's
trying
too
to think
many.
of more. But yeah, that would
Mishima.
be.
Throw Mishima in there.
Oh,
Oh yeah, Mishima for sure. Like,
Glass. Let's go.
Mm.
yeah, it's unbelievable. Just really, yeah. There's a ton on there. I almost want to look at my Spotify list, but that's a few for
I
sure.
just saw Candyman for the first time in theaters in the States, and I could
Fantastic
not
score,
believe that
too.
score. It was incredible.
Mhm.
How do you
Yep.
guys feel about the did you watch Beyond the Black Rainbow?
Yeah.
Yes,
It's a good one.
I haven't watched it for years, and honestly, I want to rewatch it because I don't think I properly wrapped my head around what it was doing. And then, actually, we mentioned him already, but I think it was Steve Carlson. Josh read his review
He has a
and kind of
fantastic
got
review of Beyond the Black Rainbow worth seeking out.
yeah. Josh, maybe you can explain it if you want to, because
I think it's actually one of the most popular reviews on Letterboxd for the
Okay.
film. Specifically, it's one
well,
of
there
the
you
most
go.
popular reviews. I'd just go look up Steve Carlson, his thoughts on that,
Oh.
because yeah, the way that he breaks down like the history of genre that he's doing with that, some of the references he's pulling, and how it kind of gets baked into the kind of meta finale of her going through the suburb and stuff like that, and how she almost ends up in what looks like the ET suburb or something like that, but she's like a scale of just like this trippy evil like genre place. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, totally love that film. That's great, awesome. This is for both of you guys. What's a memorable theater experience, maybe in the city specifically, in the city of Toronto, that you could talk about?
That's
theater
crazy.
experience.
I've had so many. Jamie, go.
The obvious one would be having Charles Pinion doing the screening for Twisted Issues. That would be the obvious one.
I mean,
But
having
would
a filmmaker who like we had discovered through the show, who had heard our episode and then became a guest and then came actually into town, and it's actually started this whole. He's been on tour now. He's went to Chicago. He's went to LA.
Holy smokes.
Like, and he's thanked us a million times because he was like, "Yeah, you guys were like the first people to be like, this should be like, I should be screening in this film, and like people will watch it, people will come." And he was like, couldn't believe all the theaters now that he's gone to playing that film, and the fact that people in Toronto trusted us to show them crude shot on video.
But that film represents something much deeper than that. It represents community and DIY and punk nature.
Totally.
That people, I think in the States especially, people are really afraid of losing out on third spaces. People are, especially living on the margins. It's an especially dangerous time to be on the margins right now. And that film represents exactly that, like a community of people getting together without a huge budget and just throwing something together. And the bands that he's exposed to, there's just this local scene, and that's like keeping the scene alive is like exactly what
and Charles
made me
flying
love
up
that film.
here and just hanging out with us for a weekend and sharing all of his thoughts about this thing that he made like 40 years ago. And it was definitely one of the moments where we were waiting for like what was going to be the first Sleazoid screening, and we were happy that we waited for something that like was something we legitimately, and speaking of which, honestly, Steve Carlson is the one who I think who brought that on the show, was he not? Or like, he brought Red Spirit Lake.
Oh yeah.
He was like, when he first came on the show, his whole thing was like, you guys have not talked about shot on video horror yet. That's something I'm going to introduce you guys to. And then we went down the rabbit hole ourselves from there. But like, the fact that ended up in the second year of the show, we were introduced to shot on video horror. And then our first screening is one of the masters of that particular subgenre, like actually flying into town and hanging out with us and screening his film. So that was so surreal.
And there is a feeling too, like when you're putting on a film like that and being able to screen it in front of people that, some of them had heard of it and were excited, but then some of the people had no idea. It does feel like you're kind of bringing something that was maybe, it's just dead is a harsh word, but just something that people aren't paying attention to. These bands that are in the documentary / horror film, and these actors that are, not really, they never went on to do anything because they were just kind of making something with their community.
Yeah.
Keeping that alive is such a really cool feeling, and just, and watching it just feels like you're watching something being resurrected for like 90 minutes. And then, it kind of does disappear back into the underground, but we got to appreciate it with a group of people for that long. So that was it was very, very cool.
People there,
and then
wearing
the other
shirts, I couldn't believe
it. Like it was a surreal moment of like, we did something. It was kind of cool that way. Then the other one that I would say that was just memorable and fun in Toronto was we saw Friday the 13th Part 4 in a theater, and everyone was drinking, and there was just so much shouting and jokes being made, and I had a great time with that. But that, again, though, the Charles Pinion was probably the highlight.
Screenings were at the Review.
Yeah,
one of our
shout out Review.
Have us back.
My Mecca.
Do another one.
It's so sick. I will
shout out for mine. I will shout out the Highland Cinema in London, because it was actually the first place that I logged having seen film prints at, because prior to that, obviously everything I kind of watched as a kid was on a film print, but I didn't fucking know that. So I didn't really care about that change, the fact that the changeover happened in 2010 to 2012. I didn't take notice of that until I started going to some of these. And the Highland was my first time being like, I'm going to a 35 millimeter screening. And I was doing it in like 2015 is my first one. I did a couple in 2016, 2017, but one of the most important for that part of me was that one of my all-time favorite movies is Death Proof by Quentin Tarantino.
Sure.
For a lot of people, it's his worst film. For me, it's arguably his best film. I have a really personal connection to it just because my dad showed it to me, and I should not have been watching it at the time that he showed it to me. I was 13, 14. He was like, you're old enough finally for this kind of movie. And when we got to like the big car crash sequence where Kurt Russell is, killing all the women in his car, and just the effects and the shock of it, and he like played it back. He was like, he couldn't believe what we had watched. He was like, did you see all of that? Like it was, that was where my brain
look at the leg fly.
Exactly. And now I know that, oh man, like a dismembered foot is like a defining image in the Quentin Tarantino catalog. And now I know how much about that film was a response to him nearly killing Uma Thurman on the Kill Bill films, and creating this movie about a serial killer who kills women with cars, and then structuring it so that they get to get revenge on him and literally castrate him and humiliate him, and like all these. There's more things I appreciate about the movie now. I saw that in a theater on 35 millimeter at the Highland Cinema in as one of, I'm looking at it here, it was my fourth screening that I had done at that theater before I had worked there. And just seeing something that like my dad loved and that I loved, and Jamie, you were there. I remember we both did that. That was partially where we were workshopping the show. This was July 2017. We probably were starting to think we should talk about this kind of stuff around that time. So that screening holds a lot of personal, like, I saw something that I absolutely loved. I got to see it with fresh eyes, how it was supposed to be seen in the theater on a print. I was doing it with my future podcast partner. So that's a very informative screening, rep screening.
I actually had a couple at the Highland too. The one that I loved was when we watched Young Frankenstein, and we were the only ones in the theater because Vic just put it on for us.
I was friends with the projectionist, so during
that was
COVID,
sick.
we screened personal 35mm prints from his collection. We were very lucky.
That's absurd.
Just in the theater, like that was insane. I never thought like that's almost like a dream kind of thing. That's very cool.
So Jamie, we did Titanic, Monty Python's Meaning of Life, Inception, History of Violence, Scream, Enter the Dragon, Back to the Future. I think those were our COVID watches.
My God.
Yeah, on 35mm prints,
on
just
private 35mm screenings.
Yeah, with like a couple of us and our friends who we invited. You know,
why don't you brag a little bit more?
I know.
Jesus
so
Christ.
please,
Yeah,
this is
we
just a
lucked
shout-out.
out.
If you don't, if you live anywhere close to London,
Yeah.
please go to the Highland. They're still doing this kind of stuff. You know, there's amazing places also, obviously in Toronto, like the Review, which is now my home now that I live here. But I just want to make sure that anyone, if you're like Jamie and I, and you weren't in Toronto trying to get into this kind of stuff, there are other places to go, and that's one that I would highly recommend going to, especially also because hopefully we'll be going there soon. I think we're going to be playing Blowout. I don't know if that's confirmed. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but
You let me
We
know.
hope.
I can edit that out.
it's probably fine.
Yeah, we're fine.
I got to give a quick shout out to, obviously I've been to the Review a bunch, probably the one Review screening that sticks out the most. Oh, besides Twisted Issues, thanks guys. Is the entire red, white, and blue 3 colors series by Kieslowski.
Wow.
That's another
Cool.
connection with similarly with my dad. I have one of my favorite lists that I've made on Letterboxd that's called I Was Way Too Young to Watch These with My Dad. I.e. the dad film canon. Because these are like all my dad's favorites, and then we end up watching them together.
Yeah.
And I was like 10, 11, 12 watching
wild.
Yeah.
Con Air, watching
Hell yeah.
a short film about killing, this like art house Kieslowski film.
Wow.
Yeah, wait.
That's the spectrum of film represented right there.
Well, I
the two genders.
I didn't give enough credence to just how influential my dad's aura or influence was on my film, because I wasn't hyper fixated on film at that time, right?
Yeah.
But I was just like absorbing all of these films. Hunt for Red October, the John Travolta version of Taking Pelham 1, 2, 3, which is just
Tony Scott.
Yeah, Tony Scott, exactly.
Good movie.
God Scott, 100%. You got another one that you guys put me on, and now I've seen every one of his films. Transport.
Yeah, mine would be like my mom was pretty influential too with this kind of stuff. She was the one that introduced me to Halloween and It, which is funny, the TV miniseries. And it just, I think that was kind of that just sent me into the fascination with horror and
my mom would just rent what
that.
she wanted to watch, and she'd be like, cover your eyes for certain parts, but like she rented what she wanted. So that was how I saw Child's Play, and had nightmares for like a year about a Chucky doll, like one of my toys just coming to life and attacking me, and like that's how I saw RoboCop for the first time. Basic Instinct was in my dad's VHS drawer, so I went.
Basic Instinct at what age?
I don't even want to say.
That's so funny. My mom is completely averse to any sliver of violence in a film.
Okay.
So all of my associations with my mom, especially rewatching films recently, have been rewatching Disney films for the first time as an adult.
That's a great experience too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is. I
and
love
then
doing
also,
that.
well, Shrek. I can't separate Shrek and my mom. That film is like right there. The Big Short, The Devil Wears Prada, like these Hollywoody but just smart dramas.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that my mom is into. I can't. That's inseparable. Anyways, about the screening. Shout out to the Review. I saw the entire 3 color series, and that
Awesome.
that just means a lot because Kieslowski was like one of the first art house directors that I ever watched, and it was with my dad showing me a short film about killing.
I go to the Review literally like once a week at this point,
Yeah.
if not more, because especially when they have the prints that they're getting recently. So yeah,
I mean, it's a trek from out here, but I'm always going out there. But from this year, TIFF put on a 50th anniversary showing of Sholay, which is a Bollywood classic. It's the 50th anniversary, and I got to see it in Toronto at
was that at Roy Thompson?
a Royal Anderson.
Royal Alex?
Royal Alexandra Theatre, rather.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And with a 85% South Asian crowd. that knew every line.
That would have been
that
wild.
Was cheering and laughing along, clapping when characters made their entrances, when they made a big fight scene or a save. It's just like unreal how, I don't know, just how influential that film was. And I heard Will Sloan say something, which I'm going to regurgitate now because it's very smart. He said that he didn't understand why certain lines were iconic, right? Like, it was something innocuous, like the person, like a character saying, "I'm going to go over there," or something completely innocuous, right? But everyone said that line right as it came out. But when you think about it, like, what are the most iconic lines in Star Wars? Like, obviously, Luke, I am your father, or whatever, right? But I hate sand. Like, this is so random and innocuous and doesn't say anything about the characters.
Like a foreign audience being like, why do they care that he said, "I'll be back"? I don't really
understand. Right, yeah.
Exactly. But as it turns out, that Cholet screening reveals so much about how that audience, which has its own industry, has its own history with genre or art house or whatever they're exposed to in the mainstream in Bollywood. They have a completely different education with cinema, and yet you know exactly what is iconic just by listening to the audience, and that was very cool experience.
That's awesome.
So shout out Cholet. That was amazing.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Okay, we should wrap up on this one. Last one.
Okay.
Guys, what happened to trailers?
Like, just you think they got worse? Is that what you're saying?
I have a lot of thoughts about this.
Oh yeah,
I was like, this guy sifts through decades of trailers every single week.
have to give you guys props because your fascination with trailers, you guys open and transition into the episode, into the new film that you guys are talking about with snippets of old trailers, which often feature narration, which is probably the only reason they work in your context. Because you can't just like sometimes isn't narration and it still works.
Yeah, sometimes it's lines of dialogue and like, God, but yeah, it's better when you have the guy being like, two guys going down.
Because it kind of saves you the job of doing exactly that. Obviously, you'll introduce the film in a more intelligible way, but what happened to trailers?
Yeah, it's like, I feel like now, I don't know, there's something about older trailers where, one, they show a ton of the movie, which is kind of crazy. Like the whole thing that I think people make jokes about nowadays, where they're like, "Oh, I know exactly where that movie's leading." You have no idea when you compared to when you start watching like 50s, 60s, 70s trailers. They'll show the finale. Like it's kind of wild sometimes. I feel like their whole thing was just like get people into the seats. Well, I think it's always that, but it's what they are focused on to get the people into the seats. Like, what the older the decades get, it feels as if like the stars were kind of like what brought you in. They'll make a big deal about who the leading man and leading woman is and all that. Whereas now it's more like, I mean, nowadays the cliche of a trailer is kind of like you hear one single note on the piano, and then it fades into like this big scale thing of like kind of a mystery of what this story is going to be. You'll get the kind of genre that it is, but it doesn't really tell you a lot these days. I
slowed down to be sad and
depressed. Yes, yeah, that's a huge thing. Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Whereas back in the day, they also use like only things from the film. Like they'd actually use the film score rather than like a pop song to kind of reel you in.
But they really wanted to sell you on the stars and the hook. It seemed kind of flipped. And now you do get sold, and sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. You do get sold more, I think, on like a vibe, or you get sold on like a mood, which is good.
Which can be good. Yeah,
it's good when, for example, you do get. It was funny. We talked with Christian about this because for the Den of Thieves, there's a fantastic, amazing trailer for Den of Thieves 2 that kind of makes it look like kind of like Miami Vice-y, and it has like a nice little techno track to it, and it's like almost like travelogue, and it's really cool. It's so different. And then you watch the other one, and it's like Gerard Butler and Ice Cube's son like bantering, you know, and it's like setting up like the plot and things like that. So every once in a while, when you get these newer moody teasers, I kind of like that. But when you're just getting the raw studio ones now, they do feel I don't know. I do, even though I did not grow up in that era of having 70s and 80s trailers and stuff, every once in a while we play one and I'm like, that was awesome. Because we also do like a virtual screening too for our like $10 patrons, and we'll do like a monthly screening. And we put a pre-show of like trailers from the year that the movie came out. So we try to create like, here's the songs that would have played in the lobby. Here's the trailers you would have seen before this movie. Like we try to recreate that vibe a bit. And every once in a while we watch one and we're just like, damn, that got me amped. Recently we did the Carlito's Way one. And the fact that half the trailer is like, so you've heard of Al Pacino.
Yeah, you ever heard of this?
And it was
awesome
literally movie names. It was like Godfather 2. Serpico. Scent of a Woman. And it was like, and that was what it was for like a minute of the trailer before you got into seeing Carlito and seeing the amazing Brian De Palma shots and stuff. And
so it is interesting to see like they're not only selling you on Al Pacino, but they're selling you on all these like world-class films that people know about in the culture previously. And I don't think I've seen that. Like, I mean, I guess you get to trick people into thinking that they're the director, you'll get like from the producer Jordan Peele or whatever, like that kind of thing. And then because what was that one movie they just recently
for him,
did it? Everyone
him,
right? The amount of people that I talked to that said, oh, it's the new Jordan Peele movie, because it was advertised in that sense of like Jordan Peele's name was attached to it rather than anybody else. So you'll see it happen, but it's so much rarer now. It's only like the few that kind of have made that cultural impact nowadays, which I feel like is so like it's far less than what it used to be, at least the way they advertise them. So yeah, it's and honestly also just like I do miss, because I don't think it's even in any movies nowadays, I do miss the narrator voice, like the big movie guy voice that's just like,
he was so comfortable.
You know, this summer exactly or whatever.
That's what prompted this question, really.
Yeah.
Is that we don't get that anymore unless they're trying to evoke an older, like Materialist had that, those trailers that were trying to evoke old rom-coms. And I get that stylistically, but it's something is missing.
Well, there's always an irony now, right? Like it's like if they do that stuff, they have to be aware that they're doing it. And I understand that with I don't know. I guess it's just like people's more modern mentality about how they take in art. I understand there is more irony, and like we just have more, probably too much self-awareness in that sense, and it leads to nothing being like sincere a lot of the time. Which we talk about that on the show a lot too. Is like that in the older, it's just I think just because you could get away with it, I guess, you know, you didn't have decades of that specific genre, or not genre but tone happening, and so there wouldn't be these rules that are kind of accumulating as it keeps repeating, like what they eventually get to with Scream, with slashers and stuff. I mean, I love Scream. I think Scream is just, it's a masterpiece. But I do feel like ever since, and maybe it's not the first example, but it's like ever since Scream, for me anyway, it felt like no horror movie gets to be as sincere anymore. You know what I mean? We also have to have like a bit of a meta commentary on the genre itself and all this stuff. And I'm like, can't we just make something just completely horrific again and just be like completely sincere in its dread and all that? It happens. I mean, when I say these things, I know I'm speaking very generally. It's just, I feel like
now, like there's horror movies that come out every year that we give positive reviews to and put on our top 10
for sure
and all that. But overall trends for sure, like what the studios think you want and what they're marketing to you is different than what filmmakers want to make, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We heard one of your favorite trailers. I would love to hear, Jamie. Do you have a favorite trailer, or if you can think of another one too?
Oh, can I tell you an extremely formative one?
Yes, please.
And this is going to be so. I actually can't believe I'm going to say this because it's going to be a problem. Unfortunately, no one and everyone rightfully does not like the guy whose song is featured in the trailer. But a trailer that got me jazzed in film school: Wolf of Wall Street, Kanye West. I can't even. It was Black Skinhead. Leo. Scorsese imagery with Leo going full, like Scorsese doing the full like maximalist camera work and all of that, and Black Skinhead, and the trailer was like cut to the beats and everything like that. That was what did it, because I wanted to be an editor. And I saw that trailer and I immediately went, man, I wish I got to cut that trailer. That would have been the most fun trailer ever to cut. So that's what I think about when I think about trailers.
That's sweet. For some reason, and it's only because of the audio, honestly, but Sorcerer's trailer by the end has this really strange, like creepy sound design. And the reason I remember it is because I put it at the end of our opening when I put the trailers in like our intro or whatever. And I just remember listening to it like 10 times in a row just because it gave me this weird feeling. And I so rarely would do that when I'm just making the trailers and the introductions. But there was something there that, like, if you go back to our episode, it's in the very intro or whatever, and you can see, and you can hear it. But that for some reason popped out at me. And I do really remember loving, in more of a new movie sense, I did really love the tone and feeling I got from when they dropped the Blade Runner 2047 or 2049, whatever the year is, trailer at the time. There's something so moody about it. I do I love both those movies and that world. So the score obviously helps with those. I love synth and all that.
It's so funny.
So that was a modern one that I really
all my
liked.
trailers that come to mind are like ones that I remember being like formative when I got excited when I was like first into movies. It's like Place Beyond the Pines. I remember having an awesome trailer, and because I feel like that was also when I like discovered, like, I was still watching trailers because I went to the movies and a new trailer came out. I wasn't like watching them just online. They drop and I just go, oh, I see like, you know, a low res Twitter trailer. I'm like, oh, that looks okay. That's how I feel like that's how I kind of engage with trailers now. But there was a time
I don't
where
really
like,
watch them now.
I saw a trailer for a new movie I hadn't heard of in a theater, and I was like, wow, what a beautifully cut together trailer.
I think the one I think of is it uses footage that's not even in the film. It's a teaser for one of the new Planet of the Apes films, where one of the apes sees two soldiers like chain smoking in a cave, and they're like recording him with their phone, and he like walks up to the soldiers, and he's like the ape is like playing around with the gun as if he doesn't know how to use it, and then he just blasts them.
That's Dawn of the Planet, I think.
Which was I think that was my favorite of the new cycle of
Me too.
And
me too.
So that, like, just the tension that's built into that trailer, I think that that's the one that sticks out to me all the time. Love that trailer.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. That is my favorite one of those movies.
The scene is in the movie too.
Oh, it is.
It is.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
it's a great
okay.
scene.
Yeah. It's a great scene.
I'm actually surprised they spoil it. I don't know if I saw that trailer. I must have probably at some point.
Oh, okay.
That's an interesting scene to put in there because it's like it's a surprise when it happens in the movie. Too.
Yeah.
And it is kind of the like that what starts the entire like violent kind of back and forth
right
in a sense too. So yeah, that's a cool one. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we can wrap up here, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you. This was fun, man.
Might take an extra hour of your time, but
no, it's great.
Oh no,
I have time
not
to
at all.
today.
You know, we also, you know what, we do a very long show. We do like sometimes we'll get guests on and we'll just be like, just to let you know.
For us, like we do even if the episode ends up being like 2:45 or 2.5, sometimes the recording session is 3 hours.
Yeah, so we're like, if anything, we owe the world our time because we keep making our guests, you know, come on for 3 hours at a time too. So no, happy to do it, man.
Can each shout out like the podcast or any other links or anything that you can direct people to, Jamie, your bands, that would be awesome.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
If you haven't got it already, Sleazoids. I think we're everywhere at Sleazoids Pod. It is just Zoids, but we're sleazy. I don't know. That's you can find us everywhere. You can find us on any podcast app of choice. You just gotta search us up, and you can also find our Patreon where we do a bunch of bonus content for everyone that helps sustain the show. We are entirely crowdfunded, no advertisements, no anything. I've never really said it that way, but yeah, I guess it's true.
It's the fact of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
follow us on whatever, I don't know, Twitter, Letterboxd. Both of us are are doing stuff.
I bet you've seen Josh's reviews.
You've probably seen me. I don't need to plug it, but Jamie, please plug yours, man.
Yeah. It's I actually have no idea what my Twitter is. It's probably like Jamie Miller ACAS, Letterboxd, Jamie Mills, I think, with a Z. Hard to you'll find it. If you find Josh, you'll probably find me.
Jamie Miller ACAS for Along Came a Spider.
Yeah, exactly. And that is, I guess, something I'll plug too. If you do like metalcore, rock music in general, that kind of stuff, I have a band called Along Came a Spider. And we're from, the band's from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm actually the only Canadian, but I go back and forth and all that. So if you're into that, give it a listen. I also do a solo project where I make like really whatever genre I want, whether it be electronic or folk or hip hop or whatever. And that's under Misfit James. So you can look that up. They're both on Spotify and YouTube and all that. And then, yeah, just thank you very much for having us. And
Thanks for coming on.
yeah, this was cool.
Yeah.
Very awesome.
Thanks again, Josh and Jamie. I appreciate you guys coming on. And everyone go check out Sleazoids.